Thank you for your patience, everybody. We're starting a couple minutes late. Just needed to get our act together. But this is Tuesday, March 24th, and I'll call to order the Town of Fairfield Board of Finance a public meeting. This is the budget hearing number 6. We'll start with the pledge. Mr. Rock, do you want to lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States.
We have Jennifer Jennings, Special Events and Development, and Susan Chudwick from the Bridgeport Hospital Foundation. So Chudwick from the Bridgeport Hospital Foundation. So ladies, welcome. I hope you can hear us.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Perfect. So if you wouldn't mind, if perhaps you could just give us a little bit of an introduction. This is the first year that the town will be contributing to your organization. And then we'll
But as you know, I'm with the Norma Freeman Breast Center that has had a location here in Fairfield for over 25 years. Assisting the women of Fairfield and the greater Bridgeport area as they go through their breast cancer journey. We put on the Pink Pledge campaign, which is our big campaign in the month of October for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and that is held right here in Fairfield Center, which brings great awareness to our cause. It's a free event for everyone that comes, which is primarily attended by Fairfield residents. At the Breast Center, we have plenty of services that all of the things that help to mitigate the symptoms of cancer treatment. So that's who we are and what we do. And thank you again for supporting us and hosting us this evening. And I would open the floor to any questions that you might have.
Great. Thank you for that summary. And again, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Mr. Walsh, could you want to start us off?
Sure. Thank you for being here this evening. It's your first time before us, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions. Normally don't get organizations like you that we support, because if we did, we'd be opening it up for every organization that supports all different types of cancer charities. But I just want to ask some questions. And I do support what you do, and I've been to many of your functions. I know many women, including family members, who've had breast cancer, and I think you do great work. So let me just start off there. But can you tell me what your endowment is?
Our endowment is, one second. Our annual revenue from our endowment investments equals approximately $135,000 per our system spending, and I believe our endowment is right around $10 million. Susan might be able to correct me on that if I'm wrong. But
no, you're correct, Jen. Thank you.
Great, and I apologize. I know you already introduced Susan Chudwick, but I'm happy to be joined by our Director of Development at the Bridgeport Hospital this evening, Susan Chudwick. Thank you.
That's great. So your endowment's $10 million. And what percentage do you take off that on a yearly basis?
There's a spending policy that is determined by our finance department, which is it's about 5.5% plus the rolling average of expenditures from 3 years prior. So basically it's about it ends up being about 5.25%.
Great. Obviously the IRS requires you to take 5%, so that you're within that range. That's great. And has that endowment been growing, or is that a fixed endowment?
It's a fixed endowment.
Okay, so you don't.
Well, no. Let me correct myself. It has been growing because of the investments and also because of our spending. So it's Jen, I don't have I don't have the exact total of what it is, but it does grow from year to year.
Okay. Do you fundraise? Like some endowments, for some charities fundraise and they have fundraisers, or people leave them money in their wills, or, you know, other things that allow that endowment to continue to grow. Does that happen with your endowment?
We haven't had any specific contributions to the endowment in the past few years. What fundraising that we do in the community and through our major donors actually goes to support the activities of the breast center um, at to provide all the patient care services and our integrative medicine services.
Your services just benefit the residents of Fairfield?
No,
Yeah.
they're
What's your like community? What towns do you service?
So we service Fairfield, Bridgeport. We get patients from Easton, Milford, just really the direct surrounding area.
Okay, would it be safe to say then, if you're up to Milford, would it be safe to say communities in Fairfield County and New Haven County?
I would say probably not New Haven County. We're really primarily Fairfield, Bridgeport, Trumbull. Sorry, I didn't mention Trumbull. That's really our largest amount of patient services and our scope. Susan, you may have other things to add to that, but
so
that's
we don't turn anyone away who needs our services, which include clinical services as well as supportive services. And while we have a specific catchment area, which is what Jen was referring to, which is primarily Fairfield County, Stratford, Trumbull, Easton, Westport, Fairfield, of course. That's our primary kind of service area. But if someone comes from somewhere else, we don't turn them away. But I would say overwhelmingly that it's Fairfield County.
Okay, I find it honorable that you don't turn anybody away. That's great. And in regards to your fundraising, what percentage of your expenses does your fundraising that you do locally? I know it doesn't go to your endowment. How much does that cover?
It covers all of our operations, 100%.
100%, except that you said that you take about $135,000 off of your endowment, correct? To pay for operations?
Yes, yes. Aside from the endowment, and I'm including that, I kind of look at that as fundraising because, but it truly isn't. From our fundraising that we do with special events and major gifts, and is whatever the balance would be, but it goes 100% of it goes to support our operations. So I think our budget is like $1.7 million a year, correct, Jen?
yes, it's give or take right around there. But I would also say we also have private grants that help with things like salaries and other things as well.
What percent of your budget is covered by private grants?
That's
let me just-
that's a good question, but I would say I'm not a mathematician or finance person, but our grant income for salaries, it looks like so around 160,000.
And out of all the communities that you discussed that you support and that you get majority of your patients that you assist with, do any of those towns on the municipal side also make contributions to you like you're seeking tonight?
Yes, they do.
Can you go through those towns and how much they each give you?
So the only other town that gives us money is the city of Bridgeport. We get a little bit here and there, but not necessarily from municipalities. The Bridgeport Fire Department, depending on the year that they have, they raise Last year, I think they raised $8,000 for us. The city of Bridgeport gave us grants that equaled around 8,500. They also let us use their facilities, et cetera, free of charge. They donate a billboard to advertise our events. They create a large banner that's hung outside of City Hall to also bring awareness to Pink Pledge. Police offer their services for free when we do our Strides for Strength at Seaside Park. So there's that whole number is quite larger than probably what I'm able to tell you right now. I would have to know, what those services really cost in value.
Okay, do you know whether the city of Bridgeport actually puts in their city budget a line item for your organization for $8,500?
That I would have to get back to you on. I don't know if they specifically put a line item in their budget. I would imagine they have a couple line items in their budget for us. We've been there for 6 years now.
Okay.
Well, one telling point on that specific thing is if it's an annual recurring contribution. Because if it's a one-time thing, it may or may not have been budgeted, but if it's an annual, if it's been recurring for at least more than 1 year, it's likely budgeted, right? So
Yeah,
can you let us know if that 8,500 has been recurring?
yes.
It has been for a few years now. Yes,
That's helpful.
their support has increased every year that we've been there.
Is there not any reason why you haven't gone to the other communities that you support, especially a community like Westport?
Well, yes, I mean, we support Westport, but we really don't do anything in Westport. We don't have, like, our big kickoffs are in Bridgeport and Fairfield. And, really 90% of what we do with the Pink Pledge campaign, which is our largest annual campaign for breast cancer awareness, is really in Fairfield and Bridgeport and Trumbull. A little bit in Trumbull, but we really don't have a big event in Trumbull. We don't use any of their parks or have any specific events in Trumbull.
And I presume you file your 990s on an annual basis, correct?
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just asking the question. I really think that we should be getting 990s on every single organization that we give money to, but we don't. We could go to each one of these organizations and try to see whether we can find them. But that's for our budget committee to try to resolve in the future. But I appreciate you telling me that you file your 990s. I think that's, how many FTEs do you guys have in your budget, like full-time equivalent employees? How many employees do you have?
I would have to, excuse me, I'm still kind of getting over a cold. I would have to get back to you on that, exactly what we have right now. We've had a bit of staff changes, so I would have to get back to you on exactly what that is. Unless, Susan, you know that off the top of your head, but I kind of doubt it.
Well, we have at least 12 that we support, but you're right. There have been some changes, some turnover, some people have retired and so on. And
Yes.
right now, I'm not sure who they've rehired. But we do have a complement of staff of 12.
And other than some of the private grants you mentioned where you get about $160,000 in to help support some of your payroll, have you applied or do you receive any other grants other than what you're talking about Bridgeport from any like state or federal government?
No.
Are there just none available these days?
Well, it's the way the organization is set up because we're part of Bridgeport Hospital. Some of our patients, if you will, receive Medicaid or Medicare, but that's separate and apart from what we do. So none of that uh, chargeable costs, if you will, support the staff at the breast center.
Okay. Can you just explain your relationship of your foundation with Bridgeport Hospital? It's just a charity of the hospital. Is that correct? It's just a 501c3 organization that's like a charitable organization of Bridgeport Hospital, or is it something else? I'm just trying to understand.
Certainly.
Our
So
first time we're here.
absolutely. Bridgeport Hospital is a 501c3. It's part of the Yale New Haven Health System. So we're part of uh, obviously Yale New Haven that has 5 hospitals in its system. The Norma Freem Breast Center is part of the Bridgeport Hospital Foundation. So it doesn't have its own 501c3. It did at one time, but it didn't make sense to continue that. So now it is a program of the Bridgeport Hospital Foundation.
I will add to that we have our own individual cost center for everything that we do.
Okay, so the Bridgeport Hospital Foundation raises money for other things other than the breast center. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they're raising money for Bridgeport Hospital, and then you guys are just a division of that, correct? Where
Correct.
You have a specific, activity you're funding, meaning the breast center.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to understand it because it's the first time you're before us. So
Yes, absolutely. All questions are welcome.
I appreciate that. I don't think I have any other questions. I just will let you ladies know, obviously we have a tough budget year before us. There's going to be many residents who are getting a 25 to 30% tax increase this year because of our revaluation that occurred, plus the proposed increase. So it's just a tough budget year. And so I'm sure you can appreciate that. And I'm sure your costs are all going up on what you're doing, and it's a struggle as well.
Yes, that is true.
I also appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Mr. Rock.
Yeah, I just have one question. Can you take me through the sort of the genesis of this? Did you all approach the town, or did the town approach you? What obviously this is the first time for us that we're seeing $10,000 request. I just want to know how did it all start?
Absolutely. So we started receiving money from the city of Bridgeport. And I kind of thought we're doing this other big event in Fairfield, and we aren't receiving any money from this municipality where we have, a location that we've maintained for over 25 years, whose residents that we help, et cetera. And I started to inquire about that. I started taking over our events and the development coordination for the Norma Freem Breast Center in 2023. And so last year, it came to my attention that there was a process, and so I asked to be part of that process this year.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Not seeing any. Okay. Thank you both for joining us tonight. And again, thanks for all your service. It's an incredible organization, and we're really glad that you service our community the way that you do. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much for having us.
Okay.
Yes, thank you for your consideration.
Take care. Have a good night.
All right. So with that,
Mr. Curley, can I just ask a question? Just generally,
Sure.
We haven't seen a lot of these charitable foundations.
Yep.
I think the budget committee should really start taking a look at that. We should really make sure that people are filing their 990s. We should know what our money's being used for each of these. I mean, it's just, we have no idea what the money's being used for. None, zero. We have no idea whether people are in compliance with their 990s. Again, nothing. As a board, but I do have a question in regards to one of them that I didn't ask to see, but when I was going through all of them, which is the pilot house, and I just don't know enough about it, but the pilot house I know lost part of their building, their rights in one of our buildings that we were giving them. Are they still functioning? And if so, or do we know what services they're supplying? Because I thought the director is actually running some other type of farm operate, like something for some children that, who have some needs, but are we really giving, is the pilot house still operational and working with autistic children like it always has been? Because I just don't, there's like a big question mark of what's really going on.
They've moved their operations that were at Colony Street up to their farm on Merlin's Lane. And they do farm care for children with disabilities. They're also moving into memory care for adults who might have dementia, and offering programming, but more of a farm, changing the programming from what they had when they were indoors.
Are they running that through the pilot house or through this other organization? Because I'm like, just not, are you comfortable that you put them on the list? Are you comfortable that the money is going to pilot house and what their mission is versus what this other organization is that's being run up at this farm? Or I just don't know enough. Maybe we should have asked for them to come in.
I mean, this was based on the conversation that we had with Ms. Caruso when we were shifting from her being at Colony Street, what she was filing with DDS to be able to be a provider for services for individuals with disability, calling it not Pilot House, but Hope Valley Farm, but it's the same organization in terms of, I believe, the 501c3. I think she's just rebranding it because of the location has changed.
Meaning that the pilot house is still the ones doing the 990. They're actually doing the work. They're collecting all the funds under the pilot house, but they're just doing business as something else. Or I'm just trying to figure out what that is, because I'm just hoping that we're not giving, funds to an organization that's not doing their mission versus, I guess we should have probably gotten.
We can get copies
We
of the
can-
990s
We can get,
that we don't have.
Okay. If you could ask her for the other, if there's another organization. Does she have another organization that she's running up
you
there?
can ask her for any other businesses that she might be operating out of that.
I got just a follow-up.
Yeah, Mr.
Just a
Cullen.
comment and maybe something we have to think of. See, our intent on the budget, profits was the contribution every year stayed the same. So we didn't feel the need to bring them in every year. However, I think at some point during the year, it could be at a regular meeting. I think we should have the nonprofits come here and for a half hour, just have them update us what they're doing. We don't have to do it necessarily during the budget cycle. We can if we want to, but I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think every 2 or 3 or 4 years, they should just come in and tell us what they're up to, what they've been doing, and so on and so forth. Because that's what we used to do during the budget. Ask them.
And we'd have a chance to ask them, what are they gonna do with the money? What are they doing with the funds? And how is this benefiting the town of Fairfield?
Exactly.
One of the things that this was supposed to, some of this funds it was really supposed to do and fund organizations that are doing work that the town doesn't have to do, right? Now,
It's our citizens.
a charity for Bridgeport Hospital, we don't do hospital organizations. You know what I mean? And it just opens it up to questions about, are we gonna get other charities now to start asking us for the thing? I'm shocked that Wakeman doesn't get funded for all the work that they do for the youth in this town. I'm shocked that we don't fund them, because that's a direct tie-in.
Yeah, I think.
I'll let them know we're open for business. More funding.
I think every budget cycle, the answers from the nonprofits were the exact same every year. And it was just, quite frankly, a waste of time. But when you don't hear from them for 3 or 4 years, I think it's time to bring them
New
in.
people on the board.
You have new people. So I think at a regular meeting, I think we should make a point of having them come in and spend an hour with them.
Yeah,
That's
well,
it.
Can I make one?
Yeah.
Yeah, in one of our department head meetings, somebody asked, how do we know that these people are doing what we give them the money to do? My response was, one of the things we want to do, and we do quarterly reviews with department head, heads is to incorporate, those organizations in our quarterly reviews. So on a rotating basis, we'll cover at least the
That's
large
great.
ones.
We could do that.
And we didn't have these organizations present to the Board of Select Persons. They presented last year, just given the shortened timeline the Board of Select Persons has to review the budget. We didn't think it was a good use of time, just Solomon and Kupchak are familiar with them, and very often these organizations, their mission is and the work that they provide hasn't changed from year to year. But as Mr. Howard said, we can absolutely have them come back and report and check in and make sure that the services, if it's funded, serving our residents.
Okay, so why don't we do this? I think we have 16 or 17 names on the list. I think it's unrealistic to do them all at once, but we can do 4 or 5 per quarter in our quarterly reviews. We'll ask them to present in 5 to 10 minutes max, leave 5 to 10 minutes for questions and answers. It'll be 15 minutes per organization. That's an hour to our meeting.
That's fine. Yep.
Sound like a plan?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They could, it would be helpful if they could send us a link like we get at the time we're doing the budget.
Yeah.
To their 990s. So we could see how they're spending their money, how much they're raising and how they're spending it. Search for it.
All right.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. All right, so that will allow us to move on to item number 4. Step out of the budget discussion for a moment and visit something that's current, related to the current fiscal year. To hear, consider, and act upon a request from the police department to release funds in the amount of $155,290.68 from the internal service fund to replace 2 police vehicles lost in a casualty event which occurred on January 8th, 2026. And we have Captain Irizarry, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. And Lieutenant Didrew. Thank you. Get better at this.
I believe you guys may have this background. I'm gonna give you another
Yeah.
copy, which I included a couple photos in, which may help understand the process of the upfitting, and I'm sure many people haven't seen the inside of the vehicle, which is a good thing. So it might give you a little understanding of kind of what's in there, what it looks like, and so we were kind of talking about it, illustrate a little bit for you.
Yeah, and for the public's benefit, the backup for this item can be found online as part of the backup on the following the agenda link. For both Fords.
Yes, well, they're both brand new Fords. So up to this point, we haven't really had a policy in place of replacing crashed vehicles, totaled vehicles, when our officers were deemed more or less at fault for the accident and not an insurance company we can recover it from. So we started this process with the risk management of how we're gonna be able to replace these vehicles, more or less because these vehicles are needed in our fleet, especially when they're newer ones. We rely on those every day. So we need to have these cars operational. So we had to come up with a reason to get these cars replaced. A little background of what happened, why we're here today, is on January 8th of this year. One of our officers came across suspicious activity that's very familiar with auto theft, which is a big thing that's going on right now. That officer put surveillance up, got other assets in place, and then once they deemed it was safe, they moved in to try to make an apprehension. As a result, the individual suspects fled the vehicle on Milpine Road, high rate of speed. At this point in time, they passed 2 of the cars that were involved. In a process to try to catch up to those cars, the 2 officers involved ended up colliding on Milpine Road. Miscommunication. One person they were both going south. One driver thought that the first car was going to continue south. He ended up trying to get on the highway to kind of get ahead of where the vehicles were. Subsequently, they crashed right at the Milpine Road on-ramp for I-95. And as a result, both vehicles were deemed totaled after review by Nova Insurance Company. Fortunately, they were both 2025 Ford Utilities, which are our frontline cars. And I'm probably the most upset of anybody because as Chief knows, it's a yearly process and we do a lot to try to keep these cars running and in great condition for our officers. They have to be reliable and they're not, top of the line, fully upfitted cars. It just makes it hard for these officers to be out there to do their job effectively. Well, that's why we're here today, is to try to see if the board will provide the funds necessary to replace these 2 cars, which will make our fleet whole again, and then in the long run, give the officers what they need to be out there to do their jobs.
Summary. Ms.
I
Ruggiero.
have I guess, a couple questions.
Sure.
Are you saying that these 2 police cars crashed into each other?
Correct.
So they crashed into each other, totaled the vehicles. What's happened to the officers that were driving the vehicles? Are they still with us?
They're both still with us. Those officers weren't deemed to have done anything negligent. They were out there trying to do their job, fight crime, be proactive. Unfortunately, this was a horrible thing that happened, and the property damage alone, and it's actually a high value. Fortunately, the officers were hurt a little bit, but no civilians were hurt in this incident. But we can't really tell them to don't go out there and do their job. We try to avoid this. Officers are trained in the academy in driving and high stress driving. But occasionally doing this job, accidents are gonna happen. We obviously try to limit it. If it's something that we see is happening often, obviously there's courses, training and stuff we could do to send these officers to. But these specific officers don't have a history of accidents. It just happened that, at this time, it was just how to explain it, it was just a crash, just an accident that unfortunately, I wish it was avoidable, but it just happened.
So why wasn't this part, we just went through the whole budget request and walked through this fund, so I guess I'm not understanding. Why wasn't this just calculated as part of all of that? Are you trying to get this part of this year's budget? Or how?
Yeah, this would be for the
Order
current
now?
fiscal years, but order them now to replace them now to make our fleet whole again. If we wait till the next year budget, then we're down those 2 cars. So we try to plan our fleet. So every year we're cycling through so we could cycle down cars appropriately and then hand them down eventually to town for different departments. So we're trying to get these 2 cars under this fiscal year to make our fleet whole now, instead of using as part of our cars next year, because then we're gonna be essentially 2 cars set back moving forward as far as what we project.
The other
So when we-
distinction, just to clarify, is that as part of the regular fleet replenishment, that gets funded out of the outside jobs fund. Casualties insurance type claims are being funded out of the internal service fund. So the funding source for these vehicles would be different than budget.
But then with
Well,
respect-
but it wouldn't though, because we looked at the internal service fund as well, and we looked at what amount we could potentially take out of it if we needed to, and this wouldn't be calculated in that number.
It would have to,
Okay,
it
so
would
it's
have
always
to be
more
added
than
into
So-
that analysis, yeah.
Exactly, so
At
it is
some
part of
point,
the budget,
all
for sure.
funds will be depleted. But I want Ms. Ruggiero to finish. Were you?
Yeah,
you're
no, how long does it take to order the cars? Like, if we were to order them, what is the timeline?
If we could get these cars, speaking with Joey Barbara from Risk Management, he could get us cars off a state bid, which they normally have them in stock. And then I have our upfitter Fleet Up Auto in West Haven who could do the upfitting. So if we were to get the approval of this, I would imagine I could have the cars on the road within a month. It all depends on the upfitting. I could probably have the cars in hand more like probably within a week once it's approved, because they have them in stock.
Can I add one thing to that?
Yes, of course, Chief.
As you can imagine, police work is difficult in 2026. Sure. Police work is difficult in 2026, and our officers are proactively trying to stop these incidents that are plaguing our town. This particular incident was when we were getting plagued with people not only breaking into cars and stealing cars, but they were entering homes. With that in mind, this particular incident brought the attention to officers because people were entering people's houses. These suspects were entering people's houses, and it's armed. It's truly concerning our officers on the road. They're doing everything possible to try to stop these cars, and by disciplining them in a way that would be deemed because it's their fault for these crashes, sets me back another 5 years, where I'm trying to motivate the officers to get out there, do police work, engage in these incidents so that our residents are safe. Of course, our officers have done things that are deemed grossly negligent, and we've held them accountable. In fact, I fired somebody already for that. So please don't be mistaken that we are not just causing this, saying this is a cause of an accident and this is the cost of doing business. Yes, it is, but it's also very concerning for us, the types of crimes that are happening. And I have to ensure that our officers are at least going out there, trying to stop these criminals in the bounds of the law. And when these things happen, it hits us in the gut. But thank God nobody was hurt, including our officers, to a degree that would cost us more.
No, I appreciate those comments, and I don't think anybody on this board is suggesting that anyone should be reprimanded if it wasn't appropriate, and I trust that whatever investigation you guys needed to understand what happened, if there was something to learn from it, or if training was required, we trust that you guys would make that happen, but it's just, it is what it is.
Sure.
Ms. Ruggiero, are you all set? Did you have more?
Yeah, I was not implying that they should be terminated. I thought it was perhaps, I had heard about that fellow that was crashing.
Yeah.
I was wondering if this was related to him and was like the lingering effect of him. That's why I
Correct,
was
yeah.
wondering.
No, he's long gone.
So, no, I wouldn't have, well, some, I know how hard it is.
All set?
And thank you for
I'll go to
everything.
Mr. Walsh first, and then I'll go to Mr. Myers.
Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation. Why are the upfitting costs so expensive? Because when I look at the photos, I see a lot of savable things on this car. Like, why can't this stuff just be posted from one car to the next? Like, I understand there's installation costs, taking radio packages out, all of your computers have to be able to put in all your stuff that's in the front of the car with the off that has to be done. Are you reusing all of the stuff that wasn't damaged in the new year?
In this specific instance?
Yes.
We cannot use it because we switched over to Chevy Tahoes as a fleet. So these cars that were crashed are Ford utilities, and all the equipment is specific to Ford utilities on these cars. So the Chevy Tahoe, the storage, the prisoner compartment, the bumpers, the push bars, those are all specific to Tahoes. And with our new Tahoe fleet, we're using Wayland products now in all our vehicles. And these vehicles that were crashed were upfitted with federal signal. So and if we were to get like a crashed vehicle like Tahoe for Tahoe, we would be able to salvage some of the equipment and move it to the new vehicle.
Just a quick follow-up on that, Mr. Welsh, but that does beg the question that if there is something that can be salvaged, even if it's not for these new cars, you do have
Yes.
other Fords
Yes.
in your fleet.
You have it, we keep it in our stock.
And then, so you would at least
Correct.
salvage what you could and use that for the next.
Correct. So these two pictures here were right after the crash. Our mechanic goes through it and takes a lot of the equipment out, and we keep it in our inventory. So if other stuff fails on cars that are currently in our fleet, he replaces them in-house.
Should it also be sold to other communities that use these other cars? Fords? I mean, there's other communities still using Fords.
Well, we're still
You see
using
'em all
Fords
over the
too.
road.
We're still using.
Yeah.
We're gonna have Fords, we'll have Fords in our fleet. I'm assuming for the next several years before we completely turn over. So this equipment will more than likely be used by our own department before we have a chance to sell to somebody else.
Okay, but the prisoner compartments in the back, does that get damaged? Like, will we replace that in another car?
Depending upon the accident, in this specific accident, it wouldn't have been damaged.
Yeah.
Because of where it is.
Yeah.
But that prisoner compartment wouldn't fit into Tahoe.
All right, so you'll be taking it. Okay, now let's talk about the effect if we approve this on the internal service fund. Tom, can you walk us through that, about what the effect is, to show us, and whether we're gonna now need to pump up the number in this budget to replace that money, because the internal service fund has devalued itself so drastically, from $12 million to like 2 million. We need to like pump it up, even if it's for these two cars.
The short answer is no for these two cars. The balance in the fund last year was about $12 million at the beginning of the year. We transferred the hardened hypertension in
Yep.
3.5 million. So beginning of the year was $8 million roughly. The end of the year, end of 2025, it's down to $2 million. As we speak today, in terms of what's budgeted, in terms of expenses to go through the fund, it's about 600,000. About 260,000 has been spent. So there's still funds available in the budgeted expense of the cost of these vehicles if you vote to replace them. The fund balance at the end of this year would be down to around $1 million. End of next year, it would be in a deficit position of about 250,000. So there would then be a need to.
And what is like Matt Spurndale talking about? Is we've gotten whacked people. We've gotten to the point where we were almost downgraded because of our internal service fund. What level was that?
What he
at?
said, and I did discuss this with him when we got the actuary's report, and he said as long as there's really, the rating agencies really focus more on the general fund, less so on the internal service fund. He said as long as it's, even if it's low, if it's in balance or positive, it's not gonna be an issue. Well, I wasn't supposed to say his name, but yeah, so we should be okay if we have a break even.
When is he gonna be before the board? When is he gonna be before the board of finance? Because one of the reasons we almost got downgraded was because of the internal service fund. And this board of finance had to turn around and start changing things to a drastic degree, pumping it up to get more money in there. So when will we see Matt Spurndale?
Well, we can ask him to come, but again, my understanding is that, you know, the rating agencies really place not a great deal of emphasis on the internal service fund, as long as you have a strong general fund balance.
Which is about 46 million.
Yeah, so we can invite him in to speak, but I have had those discussions.
When were we almost downgraded?
We had received a
It's a long
negative,
time
we had received a negative warning, like that we were going to be downgraded. We changed things back. I think it was 2011.
Oh, a long time.
2012.
And
And
did-
one of the reasons why, and unfortunately, we had a first select person at the time. It was probably before that, actually. Because Ken Plato for a while had been using fund balance to reduce, in our budget, to reduce taxes on a yearly basis. There was a line every year. And when we'd ask him, well, how much do we need in that fund balance? And he'd say, well, 5%, we can go lower than 5%. And that was probably one of the reasons too. It was a combination of our internal service fund being low. They talked about the internal service fund, but it was also, I think, the fund balance, maybe because it was so low that, you know, soon after Ken was gone and we got Matt Spurndale in, he actually told us the truth and said we should be between closer to 15%. 15%. So then the board of finance started really working on two things. One was the internal service fund, and two was taking any surplus that we had at the end of the year and putting it all 100% to fund balance, and then creating a fund balance policy, which I think when we first started that fund balance policy, we're in compliance, but that's because we set the number so low to like 7.5%.
We're almost 12.
But we built it up over 10 years.
Follow up?
Yeah, probably in the way of a suggestion. My impression from knowing what I know about the municipal securities market and from Phoenix's presentations to us is they don't give you any credit for anything but the general fund.
Right. My understanding.
But you seem to have strong recollection to that dovetails from that a bit. So maybe fund balance committee could talk to the advisors about whether like our capital fund or debt service fund or internal service fund, whether they matter. To me, I feel like for credit rating purposes, it's money that just goes into a black hole. But there may be more than what we know.
I'm sure, Strike, you raised a good point. I'm sure it matters maybe a little less when when
You have a
we
big
have the
general
level that
fund.
we have right
Yeah.
now. Because our fund balance policy says that we can use fund balance to fund the internal service fund. So it's probably a less of a concern when we're up in the 11% range. And that number of dollars that equals today, versus what it was. But, you know, it'd be interesting to talk to Mr. Spurndale when he gets in, but Tom, I appreciate you talking to him about it.
Yeah, but I will say that just along those lines, if we know, if we have a projection that shows that we're gonna be $250,000 in the red at the end of next year, and we're gonna tap into it for another 150,000 tonight, that's not in this schedule. Now we know we're $400,000 in the red. My personal feeling is we should try and budget to get that to zero at the end of next year, not negative 400. But do you have a comment?
Just about the internal service fund. And question really from Mr. Walsh, was the concern because medical weren't properly funding it because the medical claims were going?
Yeah, now that's when, that was also a time when the Board of Ed was in the internal service fund. Okay, so a little bit different.
Dynamic right now.
Than we have right now. Both sides, now the town's out of it as well. Yeah. So it's a little bit different. That's when we were, but we're actually asking the administration now, during our conversations we've had over the last 2 weeks. Yeah. Maybe they should look at, is it cheaper to self-insure? Maybe we should look at that because we're getting hit with 13% medical increase and, you know, we have a cap on it and we're supposed to be happy about that. Well, thank God we have the caps. Like, but we only have this cap this year. So,
Well, I do think we need to address
but just a concern, you know. I do understand that there's nothing the police officers could have done. Right. I understand that they need vehicles, but you know, I just wanted to have that conversation.
I did want to ask a question though. At the start of your discussion, you mentioned that historically in the past, you guys wouldn't replace vehicles mid-year.
There was no policy of it. We're trying to work with risk management to get a policy because it put us behind the 8 ball, so to speak, if we did get crash cars. So in the past, we would just be without it and we'd have to come up with spare cars to use it. And going forward, we'd be down those cars going forward. So we were trying to come up with a policy where we could kind of be made whole. Then the whole projection kind of moves forward.
Right. And I do think that now that the town has opted into actually getting insurance coverage, this is kind of the last Mohegan in terms of what do we do in terms of self-insuring? Do we actually follow past precedent of letting it roll, or do we follow what we've done in the last year or two, which is to actually draw on this fund to you know, pay for this? So
yeah, I agree with you. I think that, like you said, that's good work, last of the Mohegans. Now that we have an insurance policy, I think we should fund these, and worry about the internal service fund separately, and just kind of get past some of these accidents. And move forward.
Yeah.
Cars.
And Chief, I did make the point when you guys were in front of us the last time that based on your planned refresh of your fleet, just looking at that 3 or 4 year rolling projection, you guys are running about $200,000 to $400,000 behind every year. So I don't know if you want to think about replacing 8 cars instead of 10, or charging more to kind of on that. Another request that I think this board needs to take under consideration was, the point was made that the funds collected for outside jobs go in 2 directions. One is to our operating maintenance account, and then I think that's for the cars themselves, and then the police officers' time that goes into the outside jobs fund. So one of the actions that we can take is to direct all of that money into the outside jobs fund, so that would better fund your program in the future. But alternatively, you got to think about whether you can deal with less cars per year. Something to think about.
Sure.
So, Mr.
I have a question about the cars, because you guys provided backup an inventory of your fleet, and I'm looking at it here, and when I take out Harley Davidsons, which I guess are motorcycles, I see, is it 110 cars, 110 vehicles?
Yes.
So it would help to understand what you guys need, like what is an adequate fleet? And part of the question I'd asked, but I didn't get a response to, was how many of these cars are like vehicles that just somebody takes them, it's just their car? Because that's a difference if you have a car that everybody can use when they're on shift versus cars that, and there may be good reason that people are taking home. But I don't really understand like what the fleet need is, and I want you guys to have the fleet that's necessary, but I truly don't understand. You know, I know we just lost 2 cars. Are there actually cars just sitting in the parking lot that people can?
Or driveways. right?
Or driveways, as it were, yeah.
So the cars that were lost are frontline patrol cars. Those are the cars you see out there every day, responding to calls 24 hours a day. And those are the top of the line upfitting, cameras, computers, everything you would need to respond to calls. It's literally a roaming office. So we can't just take a car, that's parked on Nickel Street and replace it with that, because by the time it gets to that point, we ripped out the camera systems, we ripped out the computer systems, so they're not usable for patrol function anymore. So what we do is, when we get our first initial fleet, our top of the line cars that you see out there, those will stay in a rotation for 2 years, and then all of a sudden, we'll cycle those cars down. They'll go to the school unit, they'll go to our traffic unit. Based on the police accountability bill, they need to have dash cameras in them. And so certain cars have to have certain equipment based upon the accountability bill. So we started up here with the patrol cars, and then they cycle down to the school unit, the traffic unit. They'll cycle down to then the detective bureau. And then eventually, when they're kind of on their last leg with the PD, they'll turn into like overtime construction type cars. Those are the cars you see sitting on like Nickel Street. That sometimes you're like, oh, they have, 10 cars just sitting there not doing anything. Well, they go out sporadically. They're not out every day. They're out when we have the utility jobs. And then what we do is, once we get enough cars, then those are the cars that we try to turn in each year. We'll take the lights off, we'll take the decals off, and those will be given to other departments within the town. And as long as we could keep cycling, we try to give those cars back to the town that are still usable, with lower mileage. So that's kind of like the process. So we can't just take one of those cars and stick it on the road because it doesn't have the equipment anymore.
That makes sense. So there, as you're cycling it down, you're taking equipment off and keeping it on the, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Some of the equipment we transfer, like some of the MDTs, I could transfer them over. But the main thing is the dash cameras, and we only have so many of those to go around. So we have to pull them out of one car, put them in a new car, and then that car becomes another function within the PD.
And Mr. Bentley, I haven't had a chance to look at that backup that you referenced. Does it break it down between either year or model or by service? Like, is it a?
Breaks it down between year, make, model. I'm assuming that the younger vintage are the ones that are the patrol cars, the Tahoes.
Yes.
But is it specifically identified? This is a patrol car, this is a detective car, this is a outside jobs car. It's not.
It is not, no.
It would be helpful to get that.
I think
Did you guys mention how many take-home cars there are?
there's 13, I don't know if it's in the, there's 13 take-home cars that are deemed personal use, which could be man staff at certain levels within the PD. And then there's 49 other take-home cars, which consist of our school safety unit, our detective bureau, our canine officers, our crash officers, and our traffic investigators.
I guess like are the take-home ones not this kind?
Yeah, if I could add to that, take home and portal to portal is a huge difference. For example, the school unit has a portal to portal car where they take their cars home, but they're called in for service a lot for school investigations, and then to come right from their home to the school, rather than coming to headquarters, getting their car, loading up with their equipment, and then driving to the school. They're an hour and change behind. We wanted the school unit to be on the school start day at the time they're supposed to be with their car. Same thing for our detectives. They get called in, but they're not to use those cars for any other reasons besides police work. And it does 2 things for us. It allows officers to get there quick, but it also frees up our parking lot from excess vehicles that are sitting there all night long and all day long, potentially.
We don't have the space.
Yeah, we're running out of space as it is.
Please don't ask for a parking garage.
We could definitely use that, but I want to ask.
I have one more question, but it's on a parallel thing. So if anybody wants to know more about the fleet.
Mr. Myers, did you have something?
You answered it.
Great. Mr. Rock.
We have 5 vehicle vendors.
And then we have, do we have only one upfitting outfit?
Correct.
In the state or just?
It's a Sourcewell contractor, so it's like, I think it's a federal pricing umbrella, so they can only go to a certain threshold, so we're not gonna get a cheaper value. He was actually the cheapest upfitter in the area when we looked into switching over to Chevys.
And we could work with our purchase department to keep them what's the word I'm looking for, honest.
Yeah.
So that we're constantly trying to find the better price. Which we just did this past year to find this new contract for a vendor that was significantly cheaper.
And so, going back to what Mr. Walsh said, I mean, I'm looking at these pictures. Is there not anything we can salvage here? Can you give me the life cycle? I see the two crashed vehicles. What happens to those vehicles now? Where do they go? Who gets them? Do they get stripped? I mean.
Crash vehicles?
Yeah.
Jared, do you want to explain that?
too.
Yeah, I mean, the crash vehicles, we strip them of all of our emergency equipment and then they go out to auction. And then the money they get actually goes to the town's general fund, I believe. So the money that comes in goes to the general fund. It doesn't go back to our garage fund where it initially came from.
Is there any number that you could put on these, on the recoup of, like, is there?
A significant number.
We'll
I mean,
get 10 grand. We'll get.
We're saving, like the cage, for example, like the light bar, like the controller, that'll all go into cars, like for road work cars. A lot of the times, we'll have an officer get involved in some type of incident where like the mirror will get ripped off. And we'll use parts from cars like this to replace that mirror rather than taking out of our
Yeah,
budget.
so I see
But I
that.
think you were asking not so much what we salvage out of it, but once we strip it of what we want and then auction it. Is that 10 grand? Is that 20 grand?
I don't know that, we never get told that number.
We don't get that money.
Who knows that
I
number?
think the budget this year is like 50 or 60,000. It's not a huge number.
And then.
Before.
We've done it with this, but on an annual basis,
You'll be next, Mr. Walsh, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Stark.
Can I just, the last page here?
Yep, that's the equipment that the upfitter installs.
So the yellows are.
Yeah, so the yellow actually doesn't significantly mean anything. So when I send the car to the upfitter, this is all the emergency equipment that goes in a patrol vehicle, with the exception of the computer, the Axon, recording system that we provide them. All this other equipment is what they include with the installation for that 24,378.
Great.
And this is like this is like an industry standard. This is the standard equipment for the most part across the board that all frontline patrol vehicles use in the nation. Obviously, there could be a couple different lights here or there, but for the most part, the push bars, the prisoner containment, the rear storage, the lights, it's pretty standard across the board. And that's just a list of what Fleet Auto will provide for the upfit.
And then just my last question, we're doing an analysis on X number of police officers, X number of cars, and then do we look at it across the state of Connecticut and see if we have we have more cars than most, or we have less cars than most? Is there any analysis that?
I've never done that, to compare us to another department, because we're so, each individual agency in town is unique. Where there's different, not every town or agency has their own dedicated traffic unit. In fact, we're probably the only one in the area that has their own dedicated traffic unit with their own car for it. School unit, same thing. Because we're so unique, it's hard to compare apples to apples.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Walsh, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Stark.
One for Tom, but I have one for police. On the police side, is there anything to beef these cars up with protection? That they wouldn't take as much damage to their quarter panels and lighting systems like the headlights, which are very expensive. Something happens. Is there any way to beef them up, or is it there's not? You beef them up as much as you can.
We beefed them up
and
as
that's
much
it.
as we can. We have that heavy duty
Yeah, I
push
saw
bar
that.
in front. I mean, some towns do this big, heavy wraparound
Yeah.
thing, but kind of looks like you're in a Safari.
Yeah.
With that, and that's just gonna add more cost to the upfit. And it probably isn't gonna replace much, because if hard enough hit, it's just gonna push everything in.
Okay.
That's more for like lighter weight stuff, maybe if they have to push a car or something, but as far as protecting it, there's not much more that we could do.
I didn't think
I mean,
so, but-
switching to the Tahoes.
Yep.
It's a heavier car, so it may sustain a little bit more, so we may, have less of this incident that we had, in January, being the heavier vehicle. So hopefully that alone will help it sustain a little bit
And
more.
we're not
than the
looking to
past.
test that out.
No.
And then, Tom, does the $50,000 or $60,000 that the town get back, does that go back into the internal service fund?
No.
Why, can it? Why shouldn't it?
Generally, that's like office equipment that you sell, that's, you auction off. It's a lot of small items that can, but, and it's not a huge sum, but yeah,
It seems like.
it can go.
It seems like we're paying $150-something thousand out if we get $10,000
Yeah,
back.
until this year, we didn't have an issue with funding the internal service fund. It was adequately funded.
Yeah,
But as we look going forward in terms of how we address the shortfall, it was.
yeah, I mean, we probably should have asked this 20 years ago. But why those funds weren't why they're dropping into the, general fund and not going to replace a fund that's paying. So the extent I would support, we could talk about it at a later date. I don't want to slow things down tonight, but maybe we should just do that.
It's not something we would be opposed to doing.
Yeah,
Mr. Stark.
Three questions. First one was the uplift cost. If that number, the 24,000, is the list of parts on the last page, it looks like it doesn't include the stuff inside the electronics cabinet.
The 24,000,
Yeah,
that includes the labor
yeah.
and all the equipment listed here. So all the stuff, if you see that last page, the electronic equipment,
Yeah.
that's like our Axon digital camera that we provide them. That's in our Axon contract. That's completely separate from the upfitting.
Is that compatible between the Tahoes and the?
Correct, yes.
So you don't have to replace
We
that.
don't have to replace that, correct. That will take from one car. So when we do the cycling, I'll pull that Axon system out and that will go into a new car.
The two officers, how many years on the force they have?
20 plus for one of them and the other one. 12 years. He was here twice.
They're real senior officers.
It could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
And then the last question is, do they have to buy you lunch for making you come here and have?
Trust me, that crash hurts more than anything. The first thing was, how's my cars?
After we find out whether they're
Are
injured
you
or
okay?
not.
How's my car?
The guy probably got away.
The guy did get away, however, we did flatten his tires.
Yeah, we got
And we
it.
found the car.
We did find a stolen car.
Yeah.
All right, good on this one? Thank you. So this is a voting item. Can I get a motion to approve the 155,290.68 as requested? Was that a question or a motion? Oh, so, Amy, the first, Jim, second. All in favor? Great. All right. Well, we're really glad that no one was seriously hurt. And can be replaced. So thank you.
Thank you to the board, really appreciate that. Thank you.
Will take us on to item number 5. It's supposed to be the first budget item of the evening. But we at 8:12, not too bad. Not bad. We will hear a series of departments that fall under culture and recreation. We're gonna start with Department 6050, which can be found on, Chief, which can be found on page 157 of our budget book. It's the Human and Social Services Department, and with us tonight is our Director, Louise Marco. Well, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Nice, easy budget this year. I'll start with our revenue, which is on page 158. We're proposing that our revenue will be 130,000. I think that's pretty accurate. At this point this year, we're about at 127 as of today for revenue. Didn't want to round up that much more, because we never know what's gonna happen.
Consistent with actual.
Yeah.
trend. Okay.
So that's on revenue. And then,
Before we move on that, any questions on the revenue?
Just a quick question. On the revenue, you're earning that by people taking classes and stuff, right?
right, and out-of-town membership.
Okay. This is for the senior center, they're coming for like the samba and all these like waiting lists you got.
Exactly, yes, that's what it's exactly.
Has there been an increase of outside memberships or is it steady?
It's pretty steady, you know, we get about 200 a year. Especially since they have to pay now and they
Yeah.
register later.
Yeah, gotcha.
Than in-town people.
Thank you.
Sure. All right, and then on the expense side, that's page 159. We have three areas with increases besides the social security. For regular payroll, we added a youth services social worker. It's the first time the town has had one. It's necessary. We were one of the only communities without one, and I think we can all agree through COVID that there is a greater need and greater concern about what's happening across the board. We made that possible by through retirement of one union. Our longtime secretary retired, and we applied her full-time with additional funds to create this position. This is a PETA position, and that was a THEA position. But we were able to, it wasn't as much as adding a whole new position, but we did have to add a part-time clerk, social in the department, in the senior center side.
So if I
That's
heard.
pretty clear, right?
You upsize the social worker, retirement administrator, but you have a part-time clerk to help with the administrative piece.
Yes. And then we are also requesting the very bottom line, the senior center programming. We're increasing that to 71,000 this year because we have more exercise classes. That's not only for exercise, but it's for art, it's for language, it's for ukuleles, all those classes that people pay for in advance. And we'd like to pay for that out of the funds that we're putting in rather than out of fees and professional services, which we use for, say, one-time classes or lecturers or supplies. Any questions?
Ms. Ruggiero.
So the youth counselor, that you mentioned, are they working with the review board, or how do they get involved?
That's a great question. She is at present doing a townwide services needs assessment. The Youth Service Bureau sits with Parks and Rec. There's a staff person there who runs the town youth council and has supported the youth diversion team. And this position does not have anything to do with that at this time, but she is doing education, she's coordinating services and resources, and you know, she's in the position 2 months. So what she's really doing is finding out where the need is, and she is the social worker who works and coordinates with schools about you know, when there's a referral from a school, if they're in trouble or family in need, she is the person who does that.
Oh, that's excellent. That was gonna be my next question, was how does she get in touch, like involved with the school system? Because certainly there's a need. I think there's more need than not, quite frankly, with kids today. So that's wonderful to hear, honestly. Thank you.
Mr. Myers.
How are you able to cut your part-time drivers like 37%? You're going from 117 to 74.
We had 2 drivers retire, and since COVID, so during COVID, we really didn't drive, Stephen around. Doctors are delivered pharmacy. So coming back from COVID, we're not up yet to their 19.5 hours a week. So they are now able to work those 19.5 hours with the drivers. So it's not cutting the services, it's actually just increasing.
So, I mean, you have 6 drivers going to 5. So did we pay all the drivers the same amount?
We do.
So it's not an hourly?
It is an hourly, it's $18.50 an hour.
And we're not reducing the number of hours. It seems like a increase for not changing the number of hours. I mean, either the rate of the person that's driving the bus or the number of hours would have to go down for that to go down by $43,000. I don't know, I'm just making sure that we're not making a mistake here.
We have 2 to 3 buses on the road, typically 2 buses on the road each day. So these drivers are rotating through the week. Sometimes we have 3 buses, so we're still doing the same amount of driving. We're trying not to have an empty bus. So that's why we're only doing the 2 buses with regular routes rather than 3 buses. It really is not cutting hours, it's just working to have them on the road, to have the drivers on the road more with fewer drivers.
I'm also struggling to
I
understand.
don't know if I think we should just revisit that, because I don't think those numbers add up, to be honest. Not based on your response.
Yeah, what I heard you initially was that you had 6 drivers, but not everybody was getting to 19 and a half hours.
Right.
So with the retirement of 2, and I assume that you had 1 to get to 5, so we're 6 going down to 4, back up. Now everyone, the 5 can get to 19 and a half, so you're, or thereabouts. But I agree with Mr. Meyer's point, if the rate's the same and the services are the same, the hours of being en route is the same, I would have expected this drop.
Yeah, I don't think I'm explaining it properly then, because it works, because there are some days that everybody is leaving the building at 12:30, the busers are leaving at 12:30, so there's not an afternoon shift. There's some days that some come in later. It balances out because of the need and the demand of the library.
So maybe less hours, you're just delivering the service more efficiently, potentially.
Okay.
We can double check it though.
Does that mean the routes are longer? You're trying to fill the buses up more. Or you were splitting it between an extra bus?
Well, we used to have like a Stratfield ride, a Greenfield Hill ride, and then a downtown ride.
Sure.
So now there's not an awful lot of people right now in Greenfield Hill taking the bus. So it's mostly a Stratfield and a downtown. So, on occasion, there's somebody way up in Greenfield Hill. So there's 2 routes right now, and it is a little longer, but it's not, it maybe adds 10, 15 minutes for those seniors. And it's social, so it's not a crisis. And we're still able to do the doctor's appointments and the shopping for the senior housing sites.
Questions on this side of the room? Good? Good?
So just going back, all right, so you're down to this level that you're budgeting for now.
Mhm.
So you're experiencing it and it's working.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's all I really need to know.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in tonight.
Sure.
Thanks for all the work you do.
All right, so now we balance our group of departments. We've got our director, Anthony Calabrese, with us. We'll start with Department 7030, which is on page 173 of our budget book, Penfield Pavilion. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me before 11 o'clock. This is exciting stuff. Penfield Pavilion, page 173 of budget book is revenues. You'll see some increases here, slight increases, primarily driven by the 2 rental facilities. Penfield 1 being fully open. You have about $465,000 we're looking to do there. And Jackie Durrell about 240. Each one of those is about 150 parties per year. We'd like to see that number increase at Penfield, that is a year-round facility. So hopefully that'll be the goal for this upcoming budget, is to increase the numbers there. But happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah, Mr. McDonald.
What's going on with the Penfield concession? You have it down. Percent.
So in the last time we budgeted, it was going out to bid. Went out to bid. We had, I want to say there were 3 vendors, might have been 5. And then unfortunately, this was the high bid.
Was?
Wow.
Yeah, so that is the market value. We had enough where I could say that was the market value. If we had 1, I'd say maybe it was a fluke and we probably could have put it back out, but I think we had.
Had a few bids and they were already,
Yeah.
okay. Thanks.
Yep.
And there was obviously a concern that while Penfield was down and being worked on, that it would take a while to replenish that book of events, but have you been able to do that now, or are you?
We're back to where we were pre-COVID, actually.
So that's Penfield revenue. Mr. Myers.
Yeah, so I understand that, really rate changes on that rental are sort of like a next year budget, because people book these things probably into 26, like a year.
2 years in advance
Oh,
we
2
booked.
years.
Yep. So we just raised rates for Penfield last year.
Okay.
So we still have on this upcoming budget, we do have some old money on the books, but anybody that had booked after those rates went into effect would be paying the new rate.
And I understand there's a non-resident fee that's higher than a resident fee.
Yeah, it's double.
And what percentage would you say is non-resident?
10% is about non-resident. The way it works is if, I don't say this publicly, but I mean, if somebody knows somebody who's a resident, they call up their friend and say, hey, Jim, can you book the pavilion for me? And yes, it has to go in your name and you have to make all the payments and you're on the hook if there's damage or anything like that, but.
Is there any way around the Find a Friend program? Because that could be a big number. Can we like ask for proof of the people that are at the party? I mean, like check the license plate. I don't know. I mean,
I think most times they are, yeah. I'm not sure because we do ask for all that information. Everything that they give us has to have the renter's name and address on it. And again, you take full responsibility as that renter when you sign those contracts.
you're saying that you actually have a form that says I'm like the sponsor of this?
No.
No. So how are they, how are you getting all that information and not charging the non-Fairfield rate?
No, they're getting the information of the
From a
resident.
friend.
Oh, so the
Friends do
resident
it.
is saying it's like my party and it's totally, okay.
Yes,
And I'm sure the residents going to the party.
I'm sure they are.
I mean, like, what is the real thing about that? I mean, like, should it be like one person that can do this and get 99 people from Trumbull?
Are you
No.
suggesting a side business, Jim?
No, I'm just saying, I just think that for a town that just had their taxes go up 50%, people that come to this town and use our facilities that are from out of town should pay 50% more than what they pay today. I mean, right?
I agree, and that's the way
If
we've
this
set
was
the
my
rates up.
business and my rate, my expenses went up 50%, I'd have to pass that on. So I really think that we need to explore that. I don't think it's 10%.
Currently our non-resident rate is double what our resident rate is.
Great.
So it's just how do you police it?
Anthony, if you have, let's say you think it's more than 10%. Like let's say it's 20%, 30%. If we raise the,
10% are actually doing it.
well, but I'm saying if we raise the rates, there's a certain point where, okay, maybe you don't have the demand for it. Cause it's not like maybe Fairfield can't fill the 150 bookings you have. And I mean, you figured out the price. I agree that I don't like being taken advantage of, but there's, at a certain point that there's just the demand collapses for it and you can't pay $6,000 for a birthday party or whatever.
Is there any scary language when you sign up and?
Our legal team is proofed everything. I mean, they've approved everything. So yeah, I think there's some, but
Could there be more scary language to maybe scare people?
Well, I mean, look, you can't get a boat slip without being a resident. I could basically say, hey, you know what, I can get you a boat slip and then give it, I can't do it as a
you do
boat.
that, right?
So why can you do it as a Penfield rental?
all the time.
They're all assets. What are you talking about? Those people shouldn't be allowed to do it either. There's waiting lists. I just got my wait list. I gotta wait 20 years to get a large slip. Oh, poor me. I get it. But no, I'm just saying, like, we need to do a better job of policing these things.
Do you
because-
think it's harder than driven versus
And then
like,
the
that's
golf
in.
All right, I came in on a little bit of a red.
What? Oh,
We'll
gotcha.
expand that marina.
I was just gonna say, before we move off of it, I mean, is there, I get that this is a service to the extent that you think you're subsidizing the venue for residents, but the other question could be, should just you raise the fees across the board?
That is the other side of it. So we do comp studies of the rental rates every year, or every other year. And again, like I said, we just raised these rates last year. We feel right now that we are in the range that we should be. All you get with our building, again, is the space. Again, granted, it's beautiful,
To have a caterer.
but you still have to bring in the caterer. A lot of people will bring in their own furniture.
I guess what I was asking was basically like, there are people who are paying more, right? The 10% of the people are paying 50% more, but you think that that does not represent what you could fill 150 bookings. You think there's just not a market for that?
I think we'd fill the 150 anyway. I don't think that's an issue. I think the 150 would fill if the dates were available. If we didn't allow non-residents to book it at all.
I'm saying 10% of the people right now pay more than the resident booking rate. They pay at a higher rate.
They do.
If everybody was paying at the higher rate, could you still book 150?
I
That may price out
Well, that's what I'm asking, yeah, because I mean, you say you're priced right, but for some people, you're underpriced.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that, other than I think we would lose some people. I don't know that we would still book 150 parties a year. To your point, I think there is a certain price point you will hit where you start deterring people.
Or residents.
They're
It would be less of a benefit for residents.
Right.
also,
Yeah.
right? You would just be,
For a non-resident prime weekend, what's the rate?
I think it's around $6,000.
We allow alcohol to be there served during weddings. So
Yes.
They have a specific alcohol.
They have-
policy.
Yep, they've got to get an insurance policy that covers it. They've got to, they have any other caterers or vendors that they all have to provide their own insurance. They have to get the liquor
Do you know what the
license.
liability limit is on the liquor liability?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
It's not gonna be enough if a major accident happens. I mean, so the person who's renting is taking such an extreme liability risk. They don't even understand the risks they're taking. $6,000? Your liquor liability, you're probably gonna have a hard time getting over $1 million. Someone leaves there with kids in it. You could be looking at $10 million of liability on the person who's renting it. Good luck to you. Good luck. You gotta be a real good friend to rent out for your friend. A real good friend. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, it'd be, anybody ever asked me to do it, I'd say no.
Well, maybe that's the scary language, Dave.
It's a scary language.
Back to the scary, like, audio recording of that plays when it pops up.
Why would you do that for, you know?
To answer your question, it's $1 million for alcohol.
Exactly.
$1 million insurance.
Is what we require.
Yeah, and an accident that's caused by, you know, liquor, over serving somebody liquor, or somebody falls at the Penfield Pavilion because they're drunk and now has a hematoma and has a brain injury over it. It's crazy. It's pretty crazy numbers. I mean, and then have you considered, like not having a 15% discount? To do a 25% discount? So it's not as big of a savings?
We haven't. We can next time we look
Well,
at
it's
this
just
for
something
sure.
to consider. 50% is kind of drastic.
Yeah.
But like, I understand giving Fairfield residents a break because we live here, but 50% is kind of a huge break. I mean,
Yeah, I think it depends on, you mentioned you did this comp analysis. It's a question of whether the comp analysis which is on par with our resident rates, and we're really charging a premium for out of towners, which is what's incentivizing people to ask a friend. Or if you said everything on par with that double price, right? So now it depends on what's
the price of this thing. What's the
and that's something the Parks and Rec Commission looks at regularly, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the non-resident rate is market, 75% of the cost is still a bargain.
Yep.
I don't know what
That's just a quick question. So Anthony, get back to the 150. So is that the season or is that just?
So
help define
Yeah,
that?
so Jackie Durrell does 150 parties from mid-April to mid-October. That is the season.
That's really the season.
Right,
And
that-
so we're maxed, right? So
That
we're
one
cruise
could not
roll.
do, maybe you could pick up a couple Mondays or Tuesdays, but you couldn't do.
I just want to see if there's 200. There's not
And
200.
and that facility there isn't heated, isn't cooled, so it only opens during those, and it's winterized. Penfield Pavilion is open 365 days a year. However, the bulk of those 150 parties that they get is also that same time frame. So really, it's November, December through March where there's very few. And what we've tried to do is we've tried to do more town events to try to supplement that. This year, we moved down, we created a winter farmers market, which I heard the health department said we were costing them a little more overtime. I didn't consider that, so I apologize in advance. But we were getting people in there, and if we could just pick up 1 or 2 rentals out of that market pays for itself. So that's what we're trying to do.
Maybe winter rate.
Yeah.
We have off-season rates and they're heavily discounted. I mean, you can get the pavilion for $850 in the winter, in the off-season.
I was gonna suggest a winter beer garden, but Jim has turned me off from the.
Jim will sign for it.
You should start that up. I'll come.
I think earlier, not tonight, but the first select person mentioned there was there was conversations about a potential private restaurant idea in the Jennings Marina area. Can you give your thoughts or?
Yes, I can. I can give my thoughts. Something that you guys know, I've been here for a long time. One of the things I feel that Fairfield is lacking is waterfront dining. That's one of the biggest things we hear from our residents, people that move into town. So we were trying to figure out a way, is there any appetite out there for the private sector to invest in things we want to invest? So what we did, and I know I'm not speaking out of turn, we put out an RFI, a request for information, to see if there were any vendors out there that would look to us. And we kept it very vague. We just said for the Jennings Beach and Marina property. My hope and goal was to find a company that would say, yeah, we'll come in and put in X amount of dollars and do the projects you want, and in return, get a long-term lease for a restaurant or potentially something else that they might be interested in that they think they could make money off of. We had two companies that came in and submitted information. We met with those two companies as a group, and just heard them out as to what their visions for that property were. And now I would say we're still in the exploration phase, but that's ultimately where we are. I think there is an appetite. I do.
I think it's a great idea. There's great parking in that area, and it's not like there's houses right across the street like at the Burr Mansion. But I mean, I would just say with, we'll get to the golf when we talk about Boca. I mean, I know Boca has a nice restaurant in Bridgeport Harbor. I would hope Boca is one of the ones that is bidding.
So for me too, though, it's about what we can get for the town, right? I've got, as you guys know, we did a master plan a couple of years ago. Conservation, flood and erosion, dunes need restoration. There are, I don't want to say, there's millions and millions of dollars worth of projects we have sitting on a waterfall chart right now, or some aren't even on that chart yet because they're so expensive that, we know there might not be an appetite to do them at any point. But if we can get an outside group to come in and say, hey, in return for this, we will do these projects for you. We didn't have to put taxpayer dollars into that. To me, that could be a win, again, depending on what we were giving up to get there.
Right. And then, not to get specific, but in terms of the flooding that we saw in Sandy, how did that area by Jennings, kind of where the sailboat concrete house is, how did that fare during that storm?
We did okay at that end. That was probably one of the better sides of Fairfield Beach Road.
I'm a proponent of this idea, so I hope it moves forward after you get more information.
And I feel compelled to offer my 2 cents. I agree. I think it would be wonderful if there was a way to develop that area. To me, it makes sense to try and explore that area between Jennings and Penfield. You got Fairfield Beach and Beach Road at the corner. There's access into the parking lot. You could put petitions out to have restaurant parking that doesn't invade or interfere with permit parking for the beach. A lot of logistics that can get handled, but I'd love to see that develop over time. Okay, we're back to Penfield. We talked about revenue.
I guess you guys, first like one's gonna give a priority if that's what she wants to do. But every time we've tried to do this in the past, like it was looked at when we did Penfield, each time we've done Penfield, we come up with this idea. Why don't we just do it now? Like, why? And the neighbors all go completely bonkers. Yeah, bonkers might be a word, or just super sensitive, concerned, saying that those beaches bring this many people down. We have Fairfield University students hosting these parties down here. We are over a used area down in the center of town. And now you want to have alcohol down there and drive them through our neighborhoods. They were having problems with you having these events they didn't even want you to have the events you're having now. They were renting out the facilities.
Right.
You've heard all the arguments.
Oh, absolutely.
You've been there for 20 years.
Yes.
You know all about it. Sometimes I'm like, I think it's an interesting idea. I agree. It's embarrassing that we don't have a restaurant or a facility on our water. I hear all that and I agree with it. However,
well, but I think that this idea and the approach that we're exploring is different than in the past.
Yeah.
Right? If we can come to the town and the taxpayers and say, we're not putting in 7 or 8, $10 million to develop this.
Yeah.
You're still gonna get access to this amenity. I think you then just have to make sure that we have the appetite of the boards and the administration that wants to do that. Because yes, you're always going to get, as you know, we're gonna get those neighbors that are gonna say, I don't want that in my backyard.
Sure.
But if it's best for the overall community in the town, and you have, again, if we had it buttoned up where we weren't putting in a lot, I don't wanna say a lot of tax dollars, but we're not putting in tax dollars in, to me, that's a much easier sell, I think.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
And we're in the beginning of this
Yes.
conversation, and we say a group, we're looking from conservation, planning and zoning,
Economic development.
economic development. It's still, while that part of Jennings Group that you referenced fared better for Sandy, I mean, it's still, there's still real concerns there.
The economic, if you want somebody else to build it, not be a taxpayer funded thing, you're gonna ask for somebody to put $3 or $4 million in it. A restaurant operator put $3 or $4 million into a building. They're not gonna wanna pay you much rent. I mean, they can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know, with the cost of food, paying employees, benefits, all this stuff, plus a loan. They'd be like, we'll do it, but we want to pay like $1 a year.
And maybe we can have this
I
conversation.
mean,
at a
it's
later
very,
date.
I mean, look, and it'll definitely, if it moves forward, we will be bringing it to this board for further conversation. But as it's come up and just was around this table, we just wanted to get more information.
Good on revenues, we'll go to expenses. Oh, page 174.
Yep, Penfield expenses, page 174. You'll see in most of my budgets, I tried to keep them as lean as possible. We do recreation and a lot of our facilities. We have a lot of minimum wage employees, a number of them, roughly 600 or so employees that work for us seasonally. So you'll see, they're not working at Penfield specifically, but you'll see those part-time seasonal lines are increasing primarily because of that increase. It's on the state index. So we don't typically know till like November when they tell us this is going to be the next year's minimum wage. But we're at $16.94 right now as the minimum wage. So we start ours at $17 an hour. Other than that, cleaning supplies went up. That was with the building being open full time and then a new contract that went out to bid, we saw some slight increases there. So that is the other one that really jumps up. But happy to answer any questions. Overall, $25,000 increase in the whole line.
Yeah, Mr. Rock.
The 600 seasonal employees, so these are basically high school kids.
High school, college.
High school, college. Have we ever tried to work with the Board of Ed to tether some synergy between our school system and offering a summer job?
So yes and no. So we do that with, we're currently working with the alternative high school on a program with them. And then we do work with our CPP, which is the transitional students. They work for us in the summer too, but no, nothing outside of just advertising within the high schools and posting on jobs.
I mean, I have two kids who are in high school, and it's panic when summer's about to roll around. My daughter's now on the phone. Where am I going to get a job? Where am I going to get a job? And wouldn't it be great if our school system worked with Parks and Rec to have some sort of,
Yeah. Yeah, and then, I mean, it makes
something together,
it makes total sense to explore that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions on the expenses for Penfield? I had one regarding the cleaning and janitorial. You mentioned a new contract, so that's up a bit. If there's one complaint that I hear a lot around town is the condition of our facilities, whether it's Penfield, whether it's the clubhouse at the golf course. It always seems like it needs a new coat of paint, or it needs a carpet replaced. Will any of this additional money for this new contract go above and beyond where we have been, or where are we in terms of keeping condition of bathrooms to a certain standard?
The short answer is no. This money that we're talking about right here is for Monday, Wednesday, Friday cleanings. and cleaning windows of those 2 banquet facilities. That money doesn't go towards the maintenance of the bathrooms. Maintenance of the bathrooms would come out of some of the seasonal payroll. So again, during the beach season at Penfield, daily maintenance between the hours of 10 a.m. and 8 p.m. is handled by these high school students, college students that we're talking about. Bathrooms do get cleaned, paid out of the DPW budget, contracted property services. They have a contractor that does them at 6 in the morning, right around 6 in the morning, and then comes back again, I believe at 3 or 3:30. So most of the complaints biggest complaints I get are trash and porta potties and garbage, things I'm not really primarily responsible for, but they're in all of my facilities, so I deal with the complaints. The bathroom can be cleaned at 10 a.m. and then it just takes one person to go in there and make a mess. And if we're not cleaning it again, so Penfield's not a great example because we actually have staff that are cleaning it regularly on the hour. But a park or, Doogie Yellow or somewhere like that, that's getting cleaned twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and it just takes that one person to get in there. So no, this line item is not going to increase the cleanliness of it, fortunately.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you were to, maybe between now and the next week, if you gave some thought to how you think you could get the service conditioned to a higher level, what that would cost. I mean, I think at the end of the day, a lot of residents judge the town based on what they touch and feel. And when they go into, when we just spent another many millions of dollars on Penfield, but didn't touch the bathrooms. Or we have a new clubhouse that's 5 years old now, and there are kick marks on the, wainscoting, and the carpet needs to be replaced, or you go in the towel dispenser in the bathrooms is loose. It just seems like everything needs just a little bit more attention. I hear this often. If you go to a Campo in Westport, you don't see this, or compared to Westport. And
100%, I get it. Like I said, I deal with these complaints every day. Part of my problem with this is I don't actually have control over these things. This is Public Works, and I'm not trying to throw Public Works under the bus. They hear me many times a day talking about bathrooms and trash and, wiggly paper towel holders.
Faucets or
so these are the things that I hound them about. Golf course specifically in the winter when we close down, I want those carpets cleaned. I want the walls touched up. I mean, it's inexcusable for me. I think it's inexcusable. Pavilion's the same. I treat that the same way.
I just ask you that, how many man hours do you think the Public Works puts to your facilities?
We put a lot, but not enough, right? Because again, to get to the level of, I could come up with numbers to get to the level that I think the chairman's talking about. You almost have to have a dedicated maintenance staff that's all they do, and they drive around and make sure that all the facilities are cleaned and painted. And again, like my guys can touch stuff up when they can, but I only have 6. I have 7 parks guys, so my parks guys have other work that they have to do. But building maintenance is the ones who typically handle these types of issues that we're talking about. So yeah, it's more manpower and hours that need to be spent solely on those items. Again, building maintenance doesn't just do building maintenance like these types. They have other things. They do all the maintenance at our marina.
we're talking.
Did we just, maybe I dreamt this, didn't we vote to redo the Penfield bathrooms?
No, you didn't.
It was too much money, right?
There's a placeholder
Place
for the budget.
Eli brought it up.
Freaked out about the.
Correct.
All right, I knew we talked about it.
But what wasn't said, because I don't know that I was watching the meeting, but nobody asked me and I didn't feel the need to chime in, was that those bathrooms aren't just your normal restrooms that you get into. They have showers and there's all other things that are in those.
Footage.
There's a lot of square footage, exactly.
All right,
Okay. Question on Penfield expense, Mr. Walsh.
So what's the reason for the 33% increase? It's just that's what the costs are that people are getting?
Yeah, this went back out to
This
bid.
went out to bid and that's
Yeah.
the lowest bid that we got back.
That's correct.
What about the communications line? Not a lot of dollars, but why does that keep going up every year? Is it cell phones we're talking about at
No,
different locations?
no, we don't have cell phones.
So what are we talking about?
This is website and email stuff. So we have a beautiful Penfield Pavilions website that's outside of the town system, again, to try to help sell the pavilion, exactly. So that is one of the big drivers in this line.
All right, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, next department, all right, Parks and Rec, 7050, next page. 170, numbers for revenue on 177.
Yep, page 177, revenue's going up slightly here. Swim lessons, again, slightly going up. I think I used the 3-year average there because it's a odd number. Programs, I felt comfortable at that 160. The tennis concession is, again, a long-term lease, so that's what that number is there. Burr Mansion revenue, we're increasing because we've seen, we haven't really see, we raised the rates, but we average about 36 parties there. That's all we do. We don't do doubles, you know, on weekends. We don't do doubles on a certain night. So it's 36, but we have a slight increase there. And then field and facility rentals with turf field coming online, you know, we will see a slight bump there. The only thing with the turf field, we do charge more per hour, but that's only for outside groups. Our youth groups pay a player per fee, per player fee. And when they use it, obviously we don't make as much money. So happy to answer any question.
how's, so Penfield's about 36 per year, not Penfield, Burr, Mansion, 36 events per year.
Yeah.
Okay, and we, so we hit that mark pretty much every year.
Yep.
Yeah, and if I, on that note, I think last year there was a longer discussion about whether we would be using this facility or not. We kind of pressed you a little bit to kind of open it up for longer, stay out later. Your actuals are exceeding budget for this year?
They are.
Okay, good. I'm glad we pressed you. Any other questions on this one? Yeah, Mr. Walsh.
So you have that revolving account, right?
We do.
Where's that stand? Are you gonna be making a contribution to the town this year? And is that in our?
So that's in here.
It is?
Yeah, so that's the programming line, which is 160,000.
Yeah.
So that is that line there. And you can see in the past 2023, 24, we were up a little bit, but then we were down. We didn't actually make as much in 25 and 26 were there. And I think this year, that's not the current number, but I believe I think we hit it this year too already, because they collect that money October 1st. They sweep our account.
Sure, okay. So you'll think there'll be this October?
Okay, one last thing. There was also a lot of discussion last year about the music and the ordinance that would limit it. Did all that dust settle? Or, like, obviously you're renting it, so.
So we're renting it. The town invested in some soundproofing for that corner of the tent that was actually recommended by one of the neighbors who did extensive research. So we followed up with that company. We liked what they were saying. They did seem to be best in the business in soundproofing. So we invested. It was about a $30,000 purchase. We don't know.
It's coming up.
The tent will get installed in a couple, I think 2 weeks. We'll install the new soundproofing, and we are working with the police department where we've already said we were going to go and test it out before the first party. We are cautiously optimistic.
I trust the resident who made the recommendation is happy that you followed up on it and followed through, so.
I'd love to think that.
Yes, all right. With that, we'll move on to the next. Let's see, Parks and Rec, we did 7050, so now that moves to 7070 waterfront.
We didn't do,
Sorry, we gotta do the expense,
budget.
sorry. Yeah, expense. Sorry.
Expenses are a piece of cake. basically flat. Postage is up $1,000. That's my big one. So if anybody wants to ask about anything else, I'm happy to answer those questions.
I think we're good on that one.
That's
Oh, Mr. Walsh.
That's the personnel summary, because you've changed the position, I've noticed. That all about the recreation coordinator was on, and now you're after recreation program manager. What's the difference?
So what I was trying to do is get ahead of our adaptive recreation building, which we are currently in design in right now. We had somebody on staff that her specialty, she's a certified therapeutic rec specialist. The plan has always been to have her run that facility and that building. That building will be open as of, knock on wood, April of 27, which is part of this budget that we're looking at. So we didn't budget separately for that building because while I'm optimistic that it'll be done as of April of 27, I don't know that we'll be able to get programming up before July 1. So I'm going to budget the operating expenses in fiscal 28 budget when we get there. But I wanted to get ahead of her doing all the work in that facility and on that facility in this budget, because I knew I was going to have her start programming it now.
Was this woman previously the recreation coordinator?
She was.
Okay, so you're just really.
She just got
switching her, and
reclassified.
She's gonna be getting more money.
Correct.
And be doing both.
She's gonna continue to do what she's been doing and run the building.
And then the only other question I have, yes, it's on this, personnel summary is, people seem to be going down in salary levels, which is a great thing. I wish you could teach that trick to every department. So I just want to know how you're pulling that out of the hat. People retire or quit, and now we're replacing it with a less experienced person. How's that work?
It's a little of both of those. We've had some turnover, so I do have some new employees that have started as early.
So like the assistant director.
Different situation.
Okay.
I'm not gonna talk about publicly. I wouldn't want to talk about personnel publicly. Happy to go to an executive session if you ever want to invite me, but I don't think it's necessary.
All right.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll move to waterfront.
Waterfront revenues, page 181. You'll see some nice increases here. Beach stickers, the increase here is due primarily to an anticipated rate increase for resident rates, going from $25 per sticker to $30. We wouldn't touch the seniors, so they'll stay at 10. The tax relief stickers stay at 0 if they qualify for tax relief. But that's how I was able to get that $98,000 increase. Daily parking, we've been pretty consistent with, but it's all weather dependent. So we didn't raise our rates there. We're $40 during the week. We're $50 on weekends, and that is in line with our neighbors.
Is that credit card, cash?
It's credit card only, credit card debit only. We don't take cash. And then the concession, very similar to Penfield, that went out, that one's under contract. So again, we were able to keep that number.
Okay.
So the rate's gonna go up to $30?
Anticipated, it hasn't been.
It's a vote on it.
Correct. The commission won't vote on that till November. That's normally when they set their rates.
So it'll
We
be,
had preliminary discussions. We haven't raised the resident rate. Almost, it's been like 8 years.
this will be for next
It would go
season,
for,
not
yeah,
this coming
correct.
season.
When we start selling those beach stickers, the 27 beach stickers on December 1st.
Okay.
At what age, senior?
62. So we're not touching, they're still 10.
Get something to look forward to, though.
No, it's not.
One thing, I said one thing. Okay, moving on.
On the expense side, on page 182, in seasonal payroll, this is lifeguards, parking attendants, maintenance, everything waterfront related. Again, a lot of minimum wage type employees working in high school and college kids. That's where you're seeing that increase. Everything else, for the most part, I was able to hold flat. Happy to answer any questions on it.
We don't have the personnel on this one, but
There's no full-time people here.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Walsh.
9.13% increase. It's very similar to the 9.10 increase for Penfield. So
Yep.
is that because of the same kind of hourly rate structure and increases?
Yep. Exactly.
What's the finding in photography?
That is,
Went up, well, it's only gone up $2,000, just increase in that same stuff, but.
that's the cost of our beach stickers. That's what it costs us to get them printed.
Okay, and it just went up too, right?
They did.
Inch flat.
We are.
All right, moving on to the Parks Department. 7.0.
Yep, so Parks is page 184. There's no revenue side to Parks, so it's all expenses. However, with that, we're honestly, I mean, it's in a $2 million budget, we're only going up 4%, which isn't terrible. The regular payroll, these guys are all DPW employees, so there's some contractual increases there. Again, longevity, 550%, 550% increase. I don't have anything to do with that.
Also that it was low in last year's budget relative to actuals for.
Yeah, it definitely looks that way. Yeah, it's like I said, I don't set those numbers, but it looks like it was right-sided this past budget or this budget. Everything else we were able to hold steady. The one line, our largest line here outside of payroll is contracted property services, which I anticipate getting questions on. I only have really 3 items that are in there. I speak to them every year that I've had these guys. One is field maintenance, athletic field maintenance. That's Greenway Property Services. Around, I don't have the exact number, but around $900,000 is that. Then the other 2 smaller ones, we have all our island mowing. So that's any property that's not necessarily owned by the state. If it's a town property, you drive by at the circle down near McDonald's, we're responsible for mowing that. Bunch of islands in Southport, little pocket parks. Again, those are all contract. There's probably about 100 locations that we do. That number is around 125,000, that contract. And then the other 100,000 that's remaining, we use towards irrigation and sometimes fencing, split between 2. Lots of hands here. Okay.
First, honor system. All right, Mr. Penley, I was looking.
I just want to understand how, because you have on the description, you have capital outlay and it's $100,000, but that's not in 57.
Great question. So my capital outlay in all my budgets was cut. So about $275,000 was cut from my budget prior to it getting to you guys.
In at the Board of Selectmen?
Prior to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
So I think it was Mr. Elwanger had put it in his questions. He wanted to know what was cut, because I think he recognized that same line. From Parks, it was $181,000 that we had requested. We had asked for $71,000 utility tractor.
You can see it on one.
It's all.
183.
Oh, yeah, that's right there, okay.
The covered wagon is the only surviving.
That was the only survivor. The lone survivor.
What does it mean to your operations to have these things cut? Have equipment that you can use, or you're gonna have to rent?
We typically will rent or borrow, beg and borrow from DPW, which isn't always easy, but they do help out when they can. They have their own operations to.
Well, I'm just that this is like, because you're saying you have like all the full-time employees here are DPW employees.
By contract. They're Parks employees.
They're in the Parks Department, but they're
part of DPW. My golf employees are the same. They're DPW employees, but they work at the golf course. Conservation are DPW, but they work for conservation.
Okay, all right.
Greenway Property Services. Can you tell me about the company? Where are they located? Are they Connecticut based or are they?
They are out of Westchester, New York.
New York company.
Yep.
But that's bid out in years.
We bid that one out every couple of years. Most times I don't, we give out the way we award those contracts are 1-year contracts with 4 one-year renewals. So it could be up to 5 years you could be with a company. Typically, I don't make it through the 5 years. I'm at about 3 where I like to put it back out to see what else is out there.
And if I remember correctly, didn't we have a situation, I don't know if it was Greenway or another vendor, where the town was getting charged for annual increases that were not part of the contract? And get money credit.
So, yeah, yes, 100%. What we were able to do when we started restructuring a couple of years ago, in the rec budget, you'll see, I think it was last year or the year before, we had upgraded another position. I had an account clerk that we upgraded to a financial account specialist. So she's basically responsible for all our bills. And she was the one who identified back then that, hey, we're not being charged right on this, and it was slipping through the cracks. So now that doesn't happen. I mean, she even unfortunately will tell me when the bills are short and we should be charged more. But she always wants to be able to tie it back to what was bid in the contract documents again. So every time we get audited, the auditor sits with her and they love her because she's very detail oriented.
Not to poach, but we do have an opening in internal audit.
She doesn't want to go. She'd be fantastic, but she doesn't want to go. Don't get any ideas.
Sounds like she would. Mr. Walsh.
So your contracted services,
Mhm.
kind of went over the 3 areas. It used to be, before you took over the Parks Department, we used to use contracted services, which were all under public works. I'm cutting all the grasses there. Contract. You now, and then when I asked Public Works about it, their contract, you don't do this. You don't have to talk to the Parks Department. You don't do that anymore?
No, we handle all the grass cutting.
That was new under you, or when did that start?
No, so maybe I just misspoke. When I say we handle the grass contract or the grass cutting, we have those contracts I just spoke about with Greenway Property Services, who handles all the athletic fields.
Yep.
They handle the mowing, the lining, the grooming, all that stuff.
So they cut the grass for the fields too?
Correct, for the
Okay,
fields.
okay,
For the fields.
Okay.
Then we have Nelts, which is another company that does all the islands.
Islands,
They're
yeah.
brand new this year for us. They're mowing all the islands. Then I have my 7 parks guys who also do mowing. They don't mow those locations. They will mow places like the town hall green, town hall building, anywhere there's a town building, my parks guys mow.
Or you have a playground maybe.
No. A lot of times that'll be Nelts that'll do those locations. If there's a town building, it's our guys my internal parks guys, my 7 parks guys. But not only do my 7 parks guys cut grass, they groom beaches, they water plants on the Post Road and on Stratfield Road. They do all the mulching at every town facility. So in 2014, so the Parks Department, I'm just gonna give a little history lesson here, so I apologize, and I don't want to drag this out because I know Mark walked in. But in 2014, the former superintendent of DPW, Public Works, said to everybody that it was going to be cheaper to outsource all these other things. And he decimated the Parks Department. The Parks Department had a crew of 14 guys. What he did was some eventually retired through attrition, got rid of them that way. He moved some to highway, he moved some to trees, he moved some to conservation. The Parks Department was left with 2 guys. That was it. When I took over, we were able to start rebuilding the Parks Department, where we were able to get it back up to 7 guys. Because again, we don't just do those things, we also do moves. If IT says, hey, there's boxes in the basement that need to be moved to another storage, those are my guys that are going to do that. The internal auditor did an audit in 21 or 22, I think you guys have probably all seen, where she looked at would it make sense to bring these services back in-house. And because I'm of the mindset, it would be cheaper in in most cases to bring this back in. She determined that the same type of thing. It would be cheaper to bring some of them back. Maybe not necessarily the athletic fields, because that takes a different level of service that needs to be provided, that with union contracts, having my guys come in on a Saturday and make time and a half to groom the field, or say the fields are open, or double time on a Sunday, that ultimately doesn't make a lot of sense. But to have them, if we took part of the island, if we took the island contract back, if I was to have, 6 more guys or 4 more guys, we could take that contract back and lower this number here. The regular payroll is going to go up, and obviously your long-term commitments, but it showed that it was probably more cost-effective to bring some of those services back in. But again, that was done by Connie, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. And then we've had turnover in the finance department where we haven't looked at it with a new set of eyes to see, like, hey, does this still make sense financially if we were to bring it back in? But it just has to make sense, and that's kind of where we are.
Are you anticipating looking at it now?
Yeah, I would like to look at it now that we have a close to fully staffed finance department. Getting their feet under them. I mean, they haven't been here long, so yeah. But I do think that that's something that we should be looking at, because it does make sense.
I just want to say, I don't see how it would make sense. We have to pay, we have such great benefits. We have pay into a 401A for, add up all these benefits. I don't know how it's cheaper not to subcontract. I really don't. I mean, but I don't know all the work that these guys do. But it'd be nice to see an analysis.
Yeah, I would like.
Yeah, I was just gonna follow up on what Jim just said, is that, because this is seasonal work. I mean, like, you gotta keep these guys busy 12 years. I mean, they're not just gonna move boxes in the winter. So
there's a lot of winter.
What are these 7 guys doing? They're cutting grass.
We have, I don't know how many picnic benches and stuff like that, lifeguard chairs, garbage, all the blue and green garbage cans get sanded every winter and repainted every winter. And I'm not saying that takes, everybody to do that, but that is, that part right there is a lot of work.
If you could just understand.
No, I get where you're coming from.
I mean, I guess maybe they just, hey, I'm gonna work hard in the summer and I get my.
The other,
I don't know. Is it flex time, or are they still showing up?
No. Trust me, there is a lot of work to still do in the winter. And then every one of them also gets called in for snow, right? So they work for DP, when there's storms, they don't work for me. They work for DP. All the work, and I'm sure, I don't know if Tim Bishop said the same thing, but the work in our department stops when there's a storm. Even if there's a hurricane, it could be in the middle of the summer. And if there was a big storm there, my guys are leaving my department and stopping whatever they're doing to move on to whatever the emergency is with DPW, whether that's helping clear trees or roads or driving, trucks. That's.
You hit with that.
No, well,
I mean,
we're not supposed, it's supposed to come out of a snow line in DPW when they utilize them. They do kick back a lot of that to me recently. This is an internal conversation, but.
Jim, to your point though, and correct me if this is a bad analogy, but like, let's say, for example, you hired one person who was gonna be responsible for the island, you cancel the island contract, right? You may need 2 people to actually do that work during the summer. But now you've got, in the off season, that person now is doing, and so you'd be moving bodies left and right to do barrel threading.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. More than just the one thing.
Okay. All right, that's helpful. I do have a question for you. I think it's in the DPW budget, not yours, but it is parks related. 2 things. We talked about this in our DPW stuff. I don't know.
I watched.
Yeah, okay. Porta potties.
Well, porta potty.
Yeah, we're spending an ungodly amount on porta potties, and we've got they're certainly needed in certain locations. If we have a park that doesn't have a porta potty, that's understandable, but like on Sam or Brookside, we spent a lot of money to redo that bathroom. The bathroom doors are locked, we got porta potty or 2. And it just strikes me as not, something's broken, right? Like, I think we talked about this. Part of what we heard was Well, the porta potty's gotta be there because after dark, the bathroom's gotta be locked. That didn't make sense to us.
That's true. I mean, that's not the rationale.
Yeah.
The rationale is, or what's supposed to happen is the porta potty typically is in place when the comfort station is closed for the season. So Brookside, for example, right? Again, it's gonna be April to October. That is typically, we'd DPW will winterize it in October. So come October 15th, a porta potty should be dropped off. That porta potty would be in place from October 15th through the off season until the comfort station opens back up in April. Then that porta potty should disappear. That is what is supposed to happen. Now, again, I don't oversee the porta potties. I only deal with the complaints. So the beaches, right? I heard what John said, and he's not wrong. I agree fully with him that I don't think we need to have porta potties everywhere, all times of the year. The beaches are another one of these spots where you have seasonal restrooms. The porta potties should only be there in the off season. Whether they're on this side of the parking lot or that side of the parking lot, I don't necessarily care.
Doesn't have to be both.
But it shouldn't necessarily be both. That's the easy one. During the summer, spring season, I'm of the mindset, if we have Little League going on at Highwood Park and there's not a comfort station there, then they should have a porta potty.
Wholeheartedly.
Season's over, porta potty goes away. Gould Manor should be treated just like Brookside.
And so that leads to two questions. One, full disclosure, I'm inclined to cut the porta potty line, not completely, but challenge the town to better manage where they're deploying them, right? And then, yeah.
No, I would accept that challenge. And it's not my budget line, so all for it. And I know DPW would, because DPW is going to say to me, where do we need porta potties? I'm gonna give them this, I'm gonna give them the same list that I give them and say, hey, these are the places where we have sports games going on.
Start dates and end dates.
Start dates and end dates. This is where the porta potty should be. It's then going to be to resist the urge when the residents start calling in saying, well, where'd my porta potty go? I like walking on this road and there's always been a porta potty and now there's not. Because that's what's gonna happen. And then we're gonna get X amount of those calls, and First Select Woman's gonna get those calls at her office, and then her office is gonna call me and say, I'm gonna say, well, you gotta call John, but someone's going, yeah, but somebody at some point is gonna fold and say, hey, just put the porta potty back.
Or say there's woods right around the corner, so.
Yeah, but the same is with trash, right? So trash is the other thing. Trash is the other thing I get a lot of complaints about, and I can show you pictures of people putting their household trash next to our garbages. Not even in our garbages, next to our garbages, because, oh, the town's gonna pick it up. Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, carry in, carry out is kind of like our mantra. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know that we should have, I don't know that we need garbage cans.
I have been to parks recently where there are no garbage cans, and it is lots of signage, carry in, carry out, you know.
But in Fairfield, that's not what we do.
Second question before we move off this point, for those comfort stations, obviously we put a lot of money to put them in. We put Gould Manor, I think it's the most recent one, but whether it's Brookside, Gould Manor, there are a number of them.
We're doing Veterans Park this summer, this spring.
What would it take to winterize them so that we don't have to rent porta potties and just have them be open?
Insulation and heat. So I mean, those are the two things to get like a real firm number. I would have to defer to Public Works on that, James Ryan.
Well, and I guess it's not gonna happen for this budget cycle, but I think that might be something that you guys should prioritize at least looking at. Maybe we spend a little bit more year or so with the idea of not having to have this recurring portable. Others, Mr. Bentley.
I have a question again on the contracted property services. So you were breaking down the items that go into this, that does include the athletic fields. What portion of that, do you have a rough idea of the percentage?
900.
About 900,000.
Did that go down because of the turf field at Ward now? I would have expected that to go down because we were told two things, but one of them was that, oh, this is gonna save us so much money on lawn maintenance.
We'll save money on lawn maintenance. I mean, to maintain that field, it's off the top of my head, it's probably around $50,000 to $60,000 and just mowing, lining. So all that stuff.
$80,000 of interest plus a year.
Yeah.
So we're not saving money there.
But
I'm not trying to be argumentative about it, but I'm just saying I thought it would go down because there should be less field maintenance, but there's not.
there's still painting of the lines. There's still lines that we do need to paint, so that still happens. Yes, some of the lines are sewn in permanently, but like field hockey, we put on there in the fall for the high school, and that needed to be lined. So that's painted, every other week, not weekly like the grass cutting. So that was happening. There still is grass around the surrounding areas that needs to be mowed. So that gets mowed, but again, not necessarily.
Well, I guess I'm just saying like, these are things that would have happened last year, all that needed to happen last year. Now we have a year where we're not mowing, like it's a turf field. But we're not seeing a savings. We're not seeing any savings.
Well, the contract went up like 3%.
It's just a contract. Okay, 3%, but
contract, but
less work.
Less work because they're not mowing, but that, I don't have the number in front of me, so I couldn't tell you every time they mow that field, it's $100 or $96, but it's something along those lines. We're not talking thousands of dollars every time they mow. I'm telling you, they still have to mow. Right? There's grass outside of that area. So if we were paying $100 for that field, we might be paying 30 now because they still have to send their guys over there. They're gonna mow the perimeter outside of, and trust me, I've tried to pass this off to the Board of Ed. They haven't bid on that yet, but they're gonna groom it quarterly. It has to be dragged, swept quarterly, just like Tomlinson. It's the same type of thing there. So they still pick up the trash there. And so they're still going there and emptying. I think it's $8 a trash can. Again, it's something like that, but.
I get it. It's fair enough. I just think the next time people come in with a turf field, they better not say it's gonna save money. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's really, it's something else.
So, but I don't think I sold this one as it was gonna save.
You didn't sell it. No, it was Board of Ed came and they absolutely said it was gonna save money and Mr. Stark pushed back on it. I think they sort of reversed themselves in front of us and then went to the RTM and said it was gonna save money.
Yeah, for
Pretty.
I can't speak to their presentation, but
Ed said it would save money at the Ward field, I think.
Yeah.
The Ward,
So-
that hasn't happened yet.
It's gonna be online for next year, right?
on my
That's
project.
the Board of Ed, that's not him.
The only two locations I don't do.
Oh, you don't do
I
that?
don't do Fairfield Ward, and I don't do the Ludlow High School.
Okay,
That's
okay.
Lower Ludlow.
Got it, okay.
Everything else but those two locations.
Okay, well, I'm gonna
but-
pull back all of everything
No,
else.
but it's a valid point. And like I said, I know I didn't sit here to say we're gonna save money on the turf field. What I did say was we're going to increase playability and the number of hours we use on the field because we were putting lights and we were gaining the days that inclement weather was gonna be there.
And I wasn't attributing you to saying that, but we recently got something on it, but I guess I'm getting my fields usage mixed up, so you just ignore everything I say for the rest of the meeting. Really.
Won't happen, I promise you, but I am ready to move on to the marina if everyone else is. All right, so marina.
Easy. We just raised the rates. So revenues 187. So you're looking at about 175,000, which is what we just budgeted this past year, because again, the timing of the rate increase. The rest of these are winter storage and then our kayak racks. The only line on here is the gas dock concession. Again, it's a small budget item, but we do not have anybody under contract right now for that gas dock concession. All municipal concessions need to go to the state group for the blind for first right of refusal. You've probably heard me say this before. We had a vendor who was the gas dock concessionaire for a number of years. When it went back out to bid, the state said, we want it. So we were inclined, we had to give it to the state. They had it, they did a great job. We liked the service. I think the residents liked the service. Unfortunately, the vendor they had said this year, I can't do it, I'm not coming back. So state declined to do it, so we put it back out to bid and we had nobody bid on this. We reached out proactively to the last vendor that we had for many years and said, hey, would you be interested in coming back? He is interested in coming back, but in order to run a gas dock concession, the insurance that you have to get is pretty restrictive. So he's been working with our risk manager and his, I don't know if his attorney or whoever he's got working for him to try to get the right insurance in place so he can maybe get this. Will he be in place for April 15th? I don't know. I don't know that he's gonna be able to get it. Again, we're not talking a huge dollar amount on this concession anyway. More a service for the residents. But I also should point out that even if we don't have a gas dock concessionaire there, that doesn't put any strain on our police or fire from using the gas that they need for their fleets.
Residents.
But our residents would not be able to
Gas.
purchase that gas, correct?
Would you try to just run the gas part
No.
for a year? No way?
No way. I priced this out. I priced this out to try to run this internal, like if we ran a concession stand out of the building and we had minimum wage college kids pumping gas, very, very small margin of profit margin here that I just didn't think would be worth the headache. Yes, it might be a nice for residents to have. The headache I didn't think was gonna be worth it on our side.
May actually, because the numbers are so low, it may actually be the type of thing where you find a concessionaire to run it for no rent, so long as they're properly insured and provide the service.
Yeah, I mean, I can just tell you just from the economics of the gas, Fairfield charges about $1 more than what I can pay at the.
Right around the corner.
And it's a beautiful ride right past the gas dock in Fairfield to Bridgeport. And save a lot of money. I don't know why the concessionaire doesn't, I'm sure there's a lot of people like me that do the same thing. And that's not even like a membership price at Fairfield, but it's like.
So they'll take any boat.
They'll take any boat.
Wow.
They charge more. They give you a cash price. They give a member price and they give a credit price. But it's $1 more. I mean, I mean, almost like Fairweather's price is way too low. But it's unfortunate because I'm glad that you're talking to the old. He was fantastic. He was. The last one we had was, I never saw them. They just seemed closed all the time. It was kind of a weird service, but I wish the actual concession was better.
I mean, he sold more gas than anybody we've ever had. The guy who just left.
He was very friendly. People had a relationship with him. So it made a difference.
Okay. Expenses?
Went up on the top.
They did, but we saw in the last year's budget.
You saw it in last year.
Expenses.
Expenses, page 188. Again, you'll see that we held pretty flat here across the board with the exception of the binding, printing and binding, which this line ties to that same beach sticker line, but these are for the boats with the same vendor.
Good with Marina?
All right. As far as like capital improvements, dredging, how long will that last before we need to re-dredge?
So dredging is about 8 to 10 years. So we are hopefully going to be putting that on the waterfall chart very soon because we dredged that in 18. That was the last time.
That was just like 3 years.
No, I feel it flies by, but no, we did that in 2018. We won the beach restoration award for it in 2019. So yeah, we were just talking about this.
Would it be the same operation? Would it be the same thing?
Very similar. But we should start looking into having it surveyed again to see how are the depths holding up and all of that.
I seem to remember the last one being a lot wrong. Like you wanted to really make sure that the sailboats could go in and out and equipment, spreading it along Jennings.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
It was
what
a
we did.
lot.
Yeah, it was. And we had a couple superstorms that, accelerated the sand going into the channel there. So, but yeah, it's about every 8 to 10 years you're supposed to dredge.
All right, my favorite subject, Carl J. Dickman on Department 7111, page 190, 191, 192.
So part 3, revenues, page 191. increases here in carts. We've seen an increase in carts down there. So we're going up with that. And then just greens fees are the other driver here. The Golf Commission did raise rates across the board, dollar across the board. Both courses. So again, that's the driver of primarily of the increase here. No, not down there, not yet, not yet.
Really just a net.
Yeah.
Just take a couple of swings to get loose. And how many carts do you have down there? And are they electric? Do they have to?
They're same as, same as,
Plugged in and, wow.
I might be wrong now that I'm thinking about it. I think we might have the gas ones there still. I think we have the old gas ones.
Expenses?
Expenses are actually decreasing, but that's primarily due, well, we held most things flat, but our capital outlay here was slightly cut. Not cut like some of the other ones, but
Is it a specific piece of equipment?
What do you get?
the large top dresser and fertilized spreader was what was cut. It was just a $10,000 item. A mower is what's in here. It's a $55,000 mower. Yeah, everything else, like I said, we held steady on.
Is your department responsible for cutting the grass for the golf courses?
Yeah.
I know Brooklawn has looked into, has bought the automated robots.
Yeah, we're looking at-
They're buying more because it's making
We're-
financial sense.
We're also looking into that. Yeah, we are looking into that. It's, a lot of courses are going that direction.
I know the former first selectman, Mr. Gerber, was having conversations with the head superintendent at, I think it was Patterson, because they have some in their fleet already. Bill was curious to see how it was working, and I do think that that's the natural progression as equipment needs to be replaced, that it's the direction we go in. And you start with mowers for just the rough or just the fairways, and you kind of ease your way into it. But it does beg the question, you need staff to maintain it. I know we'll get to it in a minute, but whether you have a mechanic or not is important. So, okay, questions on Carl Dickman?
$55,000 mower. Do the whole.
This one specifically, I believe is a fairway mower.
One that would be replaced by a robot.
Potentially.
So we're locked in, how long do they last? 10 years?
20.
20?
Most of our mowers are 20.
So we're locked in down there now for 20 years. Have you considered like maybe some of that money and maybe do a pilot program and buy the robots down there?
We
It's not a smaller
Property.
Smaller type property.
We could potentially look at doing that down there. That might be the best spot to start.
So maybe, I don't know what those things cost. I don't know if they're leased. I don't know anything about the program.
Why don't you come back to us later on?
Sure.
We'll give you the money. I mean, I don't mind giving you the money, but it might just be a good pilot program to start. Buy the equipment, put down there and come back and report how it's working. And if you have any extra money, just save it.
Okay.
If it was a worthwhile project and you're saving money, we can maybe take and buy a couple. Finance transfer the money up there.
Okay.
And that technology is getting better almost daily. It's amazing. Okay, Smith?
All right, Smith, I think the one that everybody looks forward to here. You'll see revenues are increasing. Again, fees are going up, for greens fees, $1 across the board. So you see increase there, I think. But the main driver is the driving range. 760,000 is where I'm anticipating that being. We did just increase the rate, so we're seeing that go into effect currently. We haven't seen a slowdown in popularity of that range, which is kind of, I think what I said last year was, I was a little hesitant going into that next year in budgeting, and I wasn't sure how high, so I went to a number we were comfortable with, but the current budget, we're blowing out of the water. I mean, we're almost double where we're gonna be, where where I actually budgeted, so.
All in itself high.
Correct, yeah. So the 760, I'm really comfortable with. Like I said, the demand up there just has not slowed at all. We were closed for a couple weeks in February when we had the snowstorms. Basically, we had to close down because we ran out of balls for the guys to hit. And we couldn't collect them, so we had to wait for the snow to melt.
I'll start with Amy.
Would you want to take that up?
Well, I don't know that we'd be able to go above the 760 at this point. Right now, I think we're gonna finish the current fiscal year at around 640, but that wasn't necessarily taking into account raising the rates. So with raising the rates, that's how I came up, I tacked that onto that 640 number. And I came up with the 760.
Makes sense. Mr. Myers first, and then I'll come to you.
So what's the rate differential to play? Let's just say you don't have the pass, your regular just walk. What's the rate differential for a non-resident versus a resident?
It's about double.
It's double.
Not quite double, but almost.
And are you, when somebody goes to the driving range, are you able to charge a non-resident more?
Really hard to police.
Yeah, we have just the one rate. You can buy a regular size bucket of balls, or you can buy a starter, a warm-up bucket. Yeah, I mean, could you sell an ID or a pass to the driving range?
And then charge the no passes?
Theoretically, you could.
Okay, just something that as this
I could always bring that up to the commission for sure.
You can.
I don't think you make the same.
No, I don't think we would either, but doesn't mean they couldn't look at it.
So I'm looking at your resident IDs for 23, 24. And 24, 25, they go down across the board. What's it look like for the current fiscal year?
We're on par with where we were last year. So I think we're at, roughly 28, it's like 2,700 is where we'll probably end up.
Still down from past years, right?
Still down. We've been up as high over the years. We've been up as high as like 3,400, but we've been down as low as the 26. I don't think we've gone much lower than the 2,600. We're still seeing record number of rounds played. That's the 50,000 number above that. So, I mean, anybody that plays golf here knows to get a tee time at Smith is it's hard. It's very hard. Our non-resident numbers have decreased drastically. We used to try to be almost a 3-to-1 ratio of resident to non-resident. It's harder for non-residents now to get rates. We're at about a 5-to-1, which means the non-residents aren't subsidizing that course as much as they were. It means we have to raise rates and.
Do you think there's I guess there probably isn't really a correlation. You're still getting tremendous amount of rounds per summer. I mean, I guess what I was gonna ask you on this is, are the resident ID passes going down because we're charging too much?
So we just raised the rate.
I know. I think it's a lot of money to charge a residents for a pass.
What's the rate now? 75?
It is now,
Isn't it now?
sorry, I have it right here in front of me.
It's the price to get the lower rate. It's a card, just the.
It's as if it's like the equivalent of a library card.
I think we're at 70. I
70?
think we're at 70, right?
You have to play 2 times.
Exactly, yeah.
2 times?
Yeah, it doesn't take that.
$30 then for a resident to play 18 holes there around?
It's 34.
34.
Yeah, 34 during the week, 39 on the weekends. If you bought a season pass, then you save more too. There's a whole, we don't sell it, we only sell 200 season passes. It's not a ton.
All right, thank you.
I had a question about going back to the driving range. Facility, fantastic. I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I'm pleased that if you build it, they will come, that the revenue kind of followed. Thought it was a tremendous investment that the town decided to make, so I'm glad we did. But But that facility is also designed in a way that it'll accommodate some seating behind the actual golfers. They've got the monitors so you can play a golf course online and all this other stuff. I know that you wanted to ease into it in terms of walk before you run, but is there a plan at some point soon to build that space out with some sitting
Yes.
benches or something? Or what?
Yeah.
I mean,
So I would say we'll probably start rolling out some more furniture this spring, spring and summer. I think I rolled out like 4 tables up there right now, like small type tables. We haven't seen as many people hanging out or loitering, I guess, as I think some people anticipated, which is good, but yeah, so we're planning to put out some more in the short range area. Now that is minus some irrigation that hasn't been put in yet, it will hopefully be up and running, grown in by the summer. So it'll be another area where people will be able to practice. So having that seating area is important. Part of the 10-year plan that we have that all the bodies funded us, I think it was last year, includes replacing the current building that's behind there as well. So we're looking to do some upgrades to that, hopefully the next year or so, I would think, based on the Golf Commission's priorities, but.
Right. And has there been any discussion about having Boca or some other vendor provide a food truck or something? If I'm not mistaken, I think that Boca liquor permit covers the entire golf facility. So you could actually have a pretty nice service up there. Is that something they're interested in?
It's something we're interested in. We've used Boca to do that on like specific days and events. We have not, I would have to approach them again to see, would they want to be doing it on a more scheduled time frame, but
or even if
I think it's something that they would be interested in, and it's a good amenity.
Yeah.
When is their concession up?
So they had a 7-year contract, 5-year with 2. So I believe they're not up until the end of 27. Might even be 28. I'd have to double check.
I think they do a great job of.
Oh, they're fantastic. They're a great partner.
Mr. Rock.
So, Anthony, the shed that's at the driving range, I thought we gave you money for that.
You did.
So when is that gonna start?
Probably about a year, I think.
Okay, I thought
So we
started already.
No, so it's a 10-year plan. So what we did different with this 10-year plan was you guys gave us all the money, the boards gave us all the money up front, and now it's for us to work on the cash flow of how we divvy that up over the next 10 years. Because what I don't want to see happen, and if I let the Golf Commission decide, we would have spent it all already. And then I'd be back here in 3 years and have to hope you guys forgot that you gave me money for 10 years.
Then, the Top Tracer technology, I think it's $50,000 a year.
Yep.
Subscription to that. Where do I find that in?
The expense side.
Yep, so that's in the expense, and that should be in. 1 second, I'm gonna pull out my text version.
It's in your.
It is. It's in fees and professional services. So fees and professional services, that line makes up about $10,000 for our software system for the tee time. Our golf professionals contract is in there. It's almost 200, a little less than 200,000. Our weather technology, Perry Weather, is in there for 15.7. Top Tracers 52.6, and then Range Star, which is our range ball machine, is another 500.
Thanks.
Yes. All right, on the expenses, when is the lease up for the cart fleet?
I think we're in year 3 of our current cart.
So this would
That's a
just-
5-year lease, so we're still within.
Okay, Mr.
I have a
Mattoli.
couple of questions. Did your capital outlay get cut?
From Smith, yes.
Okay, and that, you wanted a Ventrac?
Yeah, that's that same mower that, similar mower that the par 3 is getting.
The part 3 is getting one, but you're not.
Correct.
Well, not you, but
But
you share?
no, not necessarily. But to be fair to par 3, they typically get the hand-me-downs from Smith. And fortunately, or fortunately, our foreman down there is very mechanically inclined. So he's got machines from the 80s still working and
You're okay with, I mean, maybe you're not okay with, maybe you have to live with it, but the golf course gonna survive 1 year without this stuff?
well, I wasn't thrilled that it got cut. We would like to have seen those mowers come and the workmen come. The workmen, will, you know, that's one of those things that we're going to have to borrow from DPW. The mower is not something that we can borrow, so that will now just take up more mechanical hours of trying to keep things online, which goes into the conversation of the mechanic, which it's been the last few years. So.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the Golf Commission did consider potential increased expenses when they were trying to increase revenues by virtue of higher rates. Did they actually implement increased rates beyond what we typically see $1 or $2 a year? Did they take any unnatural steps to try and increase revenue beyond what they typically would in anticipation of covering some of these expenses?
Yeah, yes and no, because the driving range really was their fallback. Like they knew they were gonna have the money to cover an extra position or so there. So no, they didn't go aggressive at raising the rates. They went up $1. They could have gone up $2, but they did, you know, they eliminated a season pass, but then they raised some other season passes, the non-resident season passes. So there was that buffer overall, again, so I mean, like the overall budget's going down, you know, the expense side is going down 2,000. I mean, we're basically flat. And the revenue side is, you know, at 500, is up 500.
You don't,
Was
was the capital outlay cut before, for by the Board of Selectmen meeting or just?
It was cut when we did the. And we did consider the fact that there was additional capital that was allocated to golf course last year.
Last
That's
year?
true.
Okay, after, at the end.
We did get our, we did.
Okay, got everything last
Yeah,
year.
we did, yeah. That was literally in the 11th hour, I think.
Did you have a capital outlay question?
No, I had a question on the rates, just like for context, like, so I don't know what, I'm not a golfer, so I don't know what people pay at a public course, but is this?
$1 million around.
That's what I feel. It's like-
Very reasonable. No, it's extremely reasonable.
30 something.
Cause I mean, the other option is like, you've got to join a golf club, right? Like, so.
Well, or you play other public courses, right?
What we do is just like we do with the pavilions, we compare what the other municipal courses are. So like, we wouldn't compare ourselves to a Brooklawn or to a Patterson. That doesn't make any sense for us, but we will compare ourselves to a Tashua or an Oak Hills. Other municipal, Longshore, right? Those places. And when the Golf Commission looks at that, we don't typically want to be the highest. We certainly don't want to be the lowest. We don't even look at the wheel. Their rates, you can't compete with their rates and they stay open year round for the most part. But if we're in that, like the top 25%, that's where we want to be typically. Because again, we're going to lose people to Tashua, Longshore. That's where the competitors are going.
Yeah, Mr. Mattola.
So what's going on with the house up there?
So the house is currently vacant. Was not included into the new superintendent's job position based on risk management and just a change of direction there. The house itself is not in any type of condition where I could rent that out and have somebody move in there. We would have to put significant work into that house to make it reasonable for someone to rent. I have some plans. I don't know that I necessarily want to say them publicly,
that's all right.
like what I would like
Thinking
to
about
see
what to do.
happen there, but yeah, but it's not rented out.
Sure, we'll hear about those.
It's located, it's the same road that you go to the driving range.
Yeah. Directly across on the same side as the driving range, directly across from the maintenance shed.
Thank you.
Mr. Walsh.
So your revenues go up by 530,000. Plan on your, why wouldn't you add a maintenance person? Do you need a maintenance person for the, you're fine without it?
No, we would love a mechanic.
Why did you? We have $550,000 of brand new revenue coming in, fresh revenue. It's like, if there's gonna be a year to do it, it would have been this year.
And that's actually why I was asking about the revenue build at the commission level, because my understanding was that they were looking for that. And look, there are decisions that are made at the administration where they and I don't want to speak for you, I'll give you a chance, but the point being, there's a bigger picture that needs to be managed in terms of headcount adds. But I think if there's ever a story or kind of in isolation, when this is self-funded effectively, they're increasing revenue by $500,000 and holding expenses flat. That to me sounds like that, you're right, that's the year to ask for it. I think they did. But you could use one.
We could.
But again, when you have to look at the entire picture, I mean, you can say the same thing for buildings. I mean, they were up a lot in terms of revenue versus expenses. They were favorable, but I think, you know, we've got to look at the entire
Please, I
portfolio.
mean, please, you know,
Yeah.
It's a tough.
we asked everybody to raise rates and they didn't necessarily get anything in return for
Yeah.
that, just.
You need a GIS guy?
Yes, guys, I'm giving the motion to add a maintenance person.
Yeah.
Maybe GIS guy could be a maintenance.
But I do think that the golf operation should try and run in a surplus, and if they can generate a surplus that can cover the expense, whether it's this year or next, at some point, they need a mechanic, right? The mechanic got cut a handful of years ago, and you guys have been piecemealing it together, borrowing from DPW or having a savvy a generalist down at the par 3 who is mechanically inclined. That's not long-term planning. So, yeah, Mr. Myers.
So, but I'm assuming you can cover this need by like a 1099, like, you know, you're just not gonna add a head with just gonna be visibility. You're gonna cover the need because you can stick it in professional services and we'd be able to say yes to that. So can't you find a mechanic that doesn't have to go through like our
We
secretary?
haven't been able to find a mechanic seasonally to do that. So the seasonal mechanic we had was our full-time mechanic who had retired. And then he put in a couple extra years for us seasonally, but now he really wants to be retired.
I mean,
We haven't been able to find, we just
well,
haven't been
you
able.
just actually made a better case for me now because I would not hire a full-time mechanic. I would hire a seasonal mechanic as a 1099. So you gotta find one. You're a golf course, you're not a.
Yeah, but typically what happens with the mechanic is the off season, they break everything down. And during the season, it's SWAT, right? It's just fix what broke. But during the off season, you take every blade off and you sharpen every blade.
You were talking about retiring soon.
I am thinking about that. Are you listening, boss? You might be. Yeah, Mr. Rock.
I just have to bring it up. You've heard me say this a million times. The nets on the driving range,
Oh, nets.
especially the right-hand side.
Yeah.
Mostly people are right-hand golfers. Balls go up, they go right over the net, and you've got people walking in the open space. I have come close a couple of times, and it'd be a really good idea to get higher nets.
At least on the right.
Especially on the right side.
We quoted it. It was
It's a lot.
$190,000 to go up 10 feet. It just, I wasn't coming back for $190,000.
It's a consideration safety issue, it really is what I'm.
There are so many golf
balls. Too much? What would
On.
That's how you send your kid to college, right?
Yeah, my son could go to college selling all those.
Oh, I know.
Give me- how much for 40 golf balls?
Yeah, he's not getting it. How high are the nets now?
Right now, they're about 40 feet.
So just to go up to 50.
I believe the number was 190,000.
If you look at Chelsea Piers, obviously that's tiered but other places, they go up a lot higher than 50 feet. I'm also guessing that we'd have an issue with conservation with birds and everything else.
I spoke to conservation and really they didn't have an issue. I spoke to Emmeline and planning and zoning and again was told no issue, so.
Okay. Well, something to think about, maybe.
I think you should do it.
Yeah. Especially when you point out the safety issue, right?
Well, it's safety and you'll save a lot of balls.
Yeah, you
So many balls in that right-hand field. It's-
Thousands.
And that's conservation.
Down on March 24th. Sid, come on back. Okay.
We'll bond it.
Just keep running.
All right, so are we good on with Anthony?
I have one final.
Yeah, Mr. Rock.
I was saving this until the end. So I've had this on my computer for a long time. The Fairfield, Connecticut Parks and Recreation Master Plan report done in October of 2022. Are we still using this? Is this? And so this is the thing that we're building off of. This is your guidepost. This is how you're doing things.
Yeah. Not everything.
Right.
But yes, when we're upgrading facilities, we will follow.
Back to this.
Going back to that to follow, to see what we're implementing. Tungus Park is probably one of the best examples of that document to look at, to see, because you could actually see like, this was recommended.
And then you did it.
This was actually done.
This is still the Bible. You're still doing it.
Yeah, it's still relevant.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, Anthony.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, and thank your staff. You guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda, we've got to hear updates on the community and economic development and its own departments. We've got with us Director Mark Barnhart and Director Emmeline Harrigan. Welcome.
This is just, because we're gonna have Mark back at some point later on to get into a deep dive of what you've been doing. This is just for the budget, right?
Yeah, so just to be clear, in years past, we've used this opportunity to once a year chat with what's going on in town and development.
This or January.
Yeah, so, and then because it took up a lot of time during the budget season, we then moved to have you come back in an off cycle. So if possible, I'd love a more broad presentation of sorts. If June works for you, we can put you on the June schedule. That'd be great. And then, so for tonight, we'll focus on the budget items, which I believe for this group is page 72.
That's mine.
Right, we'll start there.
So it's pretty, it's the same year over year, some changes, but most of that, and 85% payroll items. Happy to take any questions. We do provide currently staff support for boards and commissions, the Economic Development Commission, and Affordable Housing Committee, of course. Also the Arts Commission, which does have a line here now to fund that commission's work, as well as the Fair Rent Commission. The part-time staff person that we added this past year, current year, that's really dealing with housing related issues, compliance, monitoring and reporting to the state, as well as also handling the fair rent complaints for the most part, most of which we've been able to divert before they get to a public hearing. Before we get to a hearing before the commission, but that has been very helpful for us, for me personally, to take that that piece and give it to Tom. Deal with affordable housing inquiries. We get calls all the time looking for housing, rent complaints, and again, now that we have a number of elements that do need to report annually to us as to their compliance with the covenants and restrictions and the state requirements, somebody needs to monitor the reports and ensure compliance. You take questions.
Questions?
Yeah, so I know in executive session, we talked about increases in positions, so we're not gonna talk about that this evening, but both of these positions under Mark are going up about $10,000. That, because that's outside of a normal raise, COLA or whatever you call it. So I'm trying to figure out why your salaries have gone up.
Come out of Thea and they went into PETA. So both positions, marketing and business development manager in particular, are beyond the normal workday. So again, they were reclassified as part of an overall professional or classification study. And again, in the end, it saves the town some money because she's doing that work on weekends, covering a lot of events, which actually we would have been paying overtime, at least providing that.
So that position, this marketing and business development manager gets no overtime at all?
Correct.
Is that, Jim, that's like a relatively new position the last 2 or 3 years?
It was a marketing coordinator position. She's been with us for about 4 years, but under the Thea marketing unit prior to this past year.
Sorry, Jim.
And is that position 100% for economic development of the town? Not community development. So that person does
Yeah.
nothing with community development.
Correct. So the community development piece is off, the salary is off budget. It's funded through the community development block grant. That's the grants coordinator position. That is, the salary piece is 100% funded through the federal community development block grant.
So the grant position
And that's
that
solely-
reports to Tom, that's
No, it
paid
reports
for
to
by the
me.
federal government?
That's a different position.
Reports to me.
Oh, so then we have two grants people.
Oh, I only have one reporting to me. She
Okay.
manages this federal community development block grant program. She has for many, many years.
Okay. Who's that? What position is that?
Sonia Hine?
No, what, is that the part-time position?
No, it's full-time position.
Is that-
It's always been through the community development block grant.
Okay, so you do have, I was gonna ask you that, because I thought you had 3 people, full-time people
Correct.
in your department. And I guess I'm getting confused, and I'm only seeing 2, and that was gonna be one of my questions. So we're just seeing it.
You're seeing the only the ones that actually hit the general.
Your budget.
Okay.
Are they paid as town employees? Or do they receive a check from the federal government?
She's a town employee, we get reimbursed by the federal.
So
The
why,
grant funds her, that position.
so why wouldn't we have 3 headcount, 3 salaries, and then a grant
Revenue come in.
revenue come in?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
I don't know, it's been this way since I've been here, so that's 20+ years, so
What?
I've seen it done both ways.
She's in.
No, I'm saying she's not in this,
Where in the budget is she?
There were,
Under
like-
grants?
now where would she be?
No, she's not in the book.
She's not in at all.
She's off.
That's fine.
Should
I think
be
part
in
of
this-
the rationale is
About
if the grant were to go away, the understanding is that position would also go away. It's 100% funded from the grant. All she does is manage the grant and the programs that are funded through it.
So you have 3 headcount in your group.
You have 3 headcount.
Which reflects 2 because her salary's,
Not in the general.
even though it's getting paid
Right.
through
Right.
FinCom.
She's a town employee, but
But she's a town employee.
Right.
So if the grant went away, the town is paying her unemployment insurance, right?
she would be
That would be.
entitled to whatever benefits.
So
a
you get
town
your check
employee-
from the town.
That would be correct, yes.
Well, where's the unemployment insurance? Is that all picked up by the grant?
It's a part of the unemployment is a part of the
General.
entire calculation for unemployment.
So the
There's no
federal,
separate calculation for that.
the grant allows each town to pay for a person like this, all benefits. She gets town benefits, correct? She gets a 401A, right? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to look specifically in terms of what is reimbursed, the salaries are reimbursed, and I have to look at the benefits.
Can you do that? Because if not, where's it all being picked up? So the answer better be, yeah, it's all being picked up. We just take every single dollar that this person makes and we get billed through a grant. Because
Yeah.
otherwise that person's not, those expenses are not in our budget. Right?
That portion of
Agree with
it,
me?
that would be true if that's.
Yeah.
That's
You'll get back to me
Yes,
about that.
yes.
Okay, could we get a breakdown of that person's position and then how much the grant actually is? Okay, that'd be great.
And then,
The grant is roughly $500,000.
Okay. Let's know what the
Of
other,
which we can.
she gets $500,000.
No, no, no.
Okay.
The highest paid
I want to apply.
Yeah, you and me both. No, there are limits, obviously, to what we can charge through administrative services. Yeah.
But I would have thought that the 500,000 would come in as revenue and then we'd go to expenses
We
going
can do it that way too.
Yeah, we should, we will look at that. That would actually does make sense.
Past
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
In
we have
terms of
lots of
moving forward.
examples
No, I
of
mean,
having
we can
revenue coming in
definitely-
and expenses going out, right?
So what would be totally appropriate to do it that way?
But then wouldn't it do with the other portion of the $500,000 after paying all the salaries and stuff? And it's all captured. Seems like it would be. What do you do with the rest of that?
We provide sub-grants to groups here in town like Operation Hope. Other organizations that apply for those funds. Those funds are actually approved by the Board of Selectmen and RTM as part of our annual action plan. And then there are other funds that go towards our handyman, single family rehab, and home ownership programs, which are administered by this staff person.
Okay, I knew about the home ownership plans, but are you telling me that we give Operation Hope more money than we do just under our charitable giving to organizations that are in these
It's part of
budget
our
books?
allocation plan. Yeah, it's roughly, I think, $10,000-15,000 for permanent supportive housing support.
It's the federal government, it's not.
There's
our
guidelines for the grant.
Federal money.
All these things are eligible activities. They need to apply. We need to vet those to make sure that they're eligible to be reimbursed under the
You
grant.
have to account for that to the feds.
And there was an audit of.
You get audited regularly. So, but yes, that is provided in addition to whatever funding support the town provides for the general.
Okay. So what part of your job is doing economic development versus community development?
Well, I provide staff supervision to Sonia, but for the most part, I devote most of my time to economic development activities. I do have to obviously provide staff support as indicated to other boards and commissions like Arts Commission, Fair Rent Commission. But again, I have Tom Ivers, the part-time staff position that generally handles fair rent complaints. I do interface with the commission if it goes to a full hearing. I do provide staff support and provide undertakings with respect to the Arts Commission. But again, outside of those activities, for the most part, I'm engaged on business development for the most part. How you define community development is tourism, marketing, support. Is that community development or economic development? You know, I would consider it economic development myself.
And what activities do you guys, we've asked this before, just like currently, are you using to bring more businesses to Fairfield?
Well, I start with the businesses that are currently here and making sure that we're putting them in the best position to continue to prosper and grow. And we work with also those that are looking to start businesses. But in terms of new business activity, you know, I meet regularly with folks that are looking to move into town, answer questions with respect to the space that might be available. We maintain a commercial availability space report, which we update quarterly. Answer questions as to permitting compliance, work with my counterpart here in planning and zoning to ensure that, you know, the space we're looking at is zoned for that use. Most of the activity, again, is focused on development activity. I think that's what, in terms of growing the brand list, so.
Yeah, we're trying to grow the commercial brand list like drastically. Like that has to be like almost like a major focus. And even
I
if
heard
you
that
need-
loud and clear.
And if you need somebody else in your department, let us know if that's gonna help us get there. But what just happened to the residential taxpayers with the commercial base going down?
One thing goes down.
It went up by less.
17% versus 64%. So
Share.
there was a major shift. and causing some residential homeowners to have a 25 to 30+% increase in their taxes. We need to develop our commercial base.
I don't get any disagreement with you there.
Yeah, so how do you see us doing that? Funds that you have available, or do you need more funds to be able to make that
I think it's
happen?
a question of staffing resources. There are things that we can control and things that we cannot. So we can definitely control the permitting process and the duration that it takes people, the land use process that and regulations and policies. So it goes to my counterpart here in terms of getting the plan conservation development adopted, a 7-year process. They're in the process of updating our zoning regulations. That's enormously helpful in terms of meeting with prospective developers, property owners, investors to understand what they can do with their property. Because really what we're talking about when we talk about growing the grand list is construction activity. Because, and to grow the grand list, of our size, 1% is $185 million based on the grand list, and that means we're talking about $260 million worth of construction activity. That's a lot for any community. So we are seeing a lot of development activity. If you drive around town, I'm sure you can see sites that are being developed. We work very closely with them to ensure, again, they have the resources and tools that they need. They understand what they can do and what they can't do. And we're constantly working to fulfill that, keep the pipeline full. So I think this past year, we saw $130 million of commercial building permits issued, which is a record. So I think that, there's a fair amount of work that is being done.
Well, some of that's for the universities, like, right?
Some of it is,
Like, some-
absolutely.
How much do you think that is?
But last year, we just, look, we saw a lot of activity. We just started construction on a new 245 unit mixed use development called the Foundry between Illicit and Fairfield Black Rock train station. That's going to generate about $1.5 million in net new taxes every year. And that is completed. That's equivalent to what GE was paying when it left. So there are substantial development projects underway. I think that work continues. Whether we're in Southport, there's several projects in Southport taking place through the center of town. We've got new Porsche auto dealership taking shape on former XI battery site. So all those contributed to those building permit activities I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
What was the Foundry number? The revenue from that?
The Foundry?
Yeah, what was?
I would expect that to generate at least $1.5 million based on, 245 units.
Maybe this is for the next time that we meet, but if you can give a brief answer. I remember the last time we were presenting and we were talking about the Porsche dealership, and I recall you saying something about the tax revenue that we expect from that type of commercial property was different from, like, let's say a mixed use residential. Could you walk us through that again, how certain types of developments are, will generate more tax revenue?
Well, an auto dealership, I think, again, if you look at how that is, will be assessed versus other types of asset classes, it's gonna yield less. And certainly if you look at it over a 6-acre parcel, on a per acre basis, it doesn't compare to something like the project we just talked about, the Foundry, or Bullard over by 81 Black Rock Turnpike. So again,
It's on a parcel that's just about an acre. So that's, it's,
So-
maximizing your
if land is a limited,
vertical grand list calculation, if it were, versus like the Porsche dealership, which
Parking
is
lot.
basically a 1-story box. There, it may be, one story with a mezzanine level of office. Something like that, even though it's a very big building for the Porsche dealership, there's not as much going on in the guts in terms of the valuation. So it just gets valued differently.
We just seem to be getting every car dealership, which doesn't seem to add to the grand list as much as other types of development would.
It
And
goes
it'd
in
be nice
cycles.
if, the zoning can be changed to prevent any more. I don't think we need any more large, auto dealerships coming in, taking up vast amounts of commercial land. How many dealerships do we have in town?
Well, in that case, I don't know that, I think there are some that would agree with you. You know, it was a nice piece of property on the post road. On the other hand, this was a use that was permitted under the.
I understand. No, I understand that. I'm not saying that they broke the law.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that they even needed a
Well, I can
variance.
envision,
They
you know,
couldn't do
we
a new
talked about
variance.
this last time. I can
Yeah.
envision different types of uses that would produce a higher tax yield. for sure.
Yeah, oh, without a doubt. I think we all had different hopes and dreams for what would happen with the Exide property. And that was, I would say,
But
disappointing.
those are the things that we
Yeah.
we don't necessarily control. 'Cause we don't own the property. Right, so
No, I know.
the owner has something to say about how he'd like to.
Outside of
Zones.
outside of zoning, like how can you interact with or intervene in a property that's owned by someone private? Like, other than changing the zoning, like, for example, does the town, I mean, at some point, there's an advantage to offering some kind of tax abatement to bring in a different type of
Found it
property.
necessary to do that. I think
Haven't done this.
if we, you know, there might be limited instances. Certainly, we had an example with downtown where the Shoe Community Theater is. We desperately wanted to have some kind of performing arts space there. It was vacant for 10 years. Looking for some revitalization. That became necessary in order for that to work financially. So there might be limited applications where a tax abatement would be appropriate. But for the most part, we haven't seen that for a lot of the development. Obviously, the development we have seen is performed fine without any kind of subsidy from the town.
I guess I was sort of
Not
talking
seeing
more
a
about,
gap.
the scenario where if you know a property is potentially going to be sold to a less desirable or leased to a less desirable buyer, like the Porsche dealership. Is there, I don't know how you.
Well, other than the town
Involved in-
acquiring the property itself and trying to act as a developer, I don't know how you would do that. The property owner he has rights too in terms of how he would like the property to be developed. And I think in this instance, it's not always the highest, what we think is the highest yield from a development standpoint. There are other factors at play here. So
You guys don't try to go in and like source deals and like try to.
if we can, part of what I do is try to play matchmaker. Property owner or a landlord, and they may not go for it.
Yeah.
So they may have a different idea. We talked to that particular property owner about a couple different options and tried to get other developers interested in that site. The way he was considering structuring the deal as a ground lease, limited some of the potential there, and clearly he was looking for a certain guaranteed revenue stream, if you will. And also, one of the considerations too is, whether he has to provide any level of contingencies, how certain is that to be how certain is the deal to happen? So I think we're seeing that with a couple of sites now where, we might look at it from what's going to generate the most bang for the buck, but the owner of the property may be looking at, well, I have to then wait. I have to provide, it's a contingent offer based on, making certain modifications or changes. I don't want to wait for that. I want a guarantee, give me my check type thing. So,
Yeah.
But I will say that, Mark and I, we meet regularly with
absolutely. day.
landowners who have, I think to Mr. Walsh's point, properties that are not valued as highly because the buildings are old and they're ready for redevelopment. And so I think, in partnership, we've been talking through with what these folks want to do, communicating that back to our planning and zoning commission and making sure
that the regulation modifications that we're making now are aligned with what those property owners want to do with their property. And also, I think with the vision of the town and making it more pedestrian oriented, more vital, ground floor commercial, potential upper floor residential, which we've seen be very successful in terms of landless growth.
Yeah.
Any more budget questions?
Yeah. What I think is a disappointment in our zoning. I don't understand why we have no connection between Mill Plain Road and Southport. Meaning that you look at Westport, and they have for the full length of Westport along their post road, all the way down into Norwalk, commercial development that adds to their grand list substantially. You look at Greenwich, from where they start on their Route 1 that they call Putnam Road. From Portchester to Stamford, it's 100% economic development in regards to, but we have this area that goes from Mill Plain Road, and it's kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. And now we've lost the biggest parcel, I guess, which is the Exide property. We just never properly zoned it. There should have been a plan. I don't.
Is it a zoning issue though, or is it?
Private properties.
Well, it
We
is.
changed the zone on it.
I mean, I will say it is in part a zoning issue.
Yeah,
I do
It's a zoning
believe,
issue.
I mean,
But it's all.
I will kind of reiterate the words of Jim Wendt, who says, people want more money for the grand list, but they don't want any development, especially if they live in the adjacent neighborhoods, right? So.
Some of the property there, there's been proposals and the neighbors around there are going crazy. I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't know what you can do.
Well, you go through
Yeah,
the process.
It's a process, and there's, I think, a rhythm, and growth happens in stages.
I know, but there's no stages now.
Well,
mean,
I think that's not necessarily
think that
true.
there-
I will say that with Black Rock Turnpike, we're seeing an evolution in development and new structures. Even in the Route 1 corridor, we're seeing an evolution of some of the structures. People will start to get used to them. They won't be as scary. When Audubon was on the books, when Anchorage was on the books, people were very upset. They were very concerned. It's now constructed. It is 90 units.
Beautiful.
And it is not problematic for the people who live around it. But change takes adjustment and a certain comfort level in seeing it actually constructed and understanding that it doesn't do harm. So I feel like we're in the process of some of this change occurring. I will say that this commission has been very forward-looking and wanting to make sure that they are accommodating the growth that they want to see, instead of this last year where we really had to be up against applications that we didn't want to see, but we had to process. So I feel like we're heading in the right trajectory. And as a staff person, I don't get to vote on and make these changes, but we're certainly recommending a good amount of change. There's mixed reaction in the community. We understand the need to grow the grand list, but we still have to contend with neighbors who understandably are a little resistant to change.
I have a clarifying question to ask on that. Like, so we do see, to your point, little pockets of development in that corridor that Mr. Walsh was talking about. And perhaps over time that will fill in with more commercial development, but that would suggest that it's zoned for that. I thought I heard the mention that it's not currently zoned for that.
Well, the one Exide parcel is zoned industrial,
Right.
which is why it couldn't until the zoning changed be really be a mixed use parcel, because industrial land doesn't allow for residential. So unfortunately, the Porsche dealership got ahead of us in terms of working on the zoning for that particular piece of land. We could go back, we could request the property owner that they allow us to change the zone on that property. Because, you know, if I had to guess, I don't think car dealerships are going to take up as much land as they do today. I think in 10 years from now, car dealerships will be a very different experience. In Europe, you go into a mall and you pick out your car, you pick your finish, you pick your exterior color, and you don't have to look at every single variation on a lot. You just pick it out and you have it 2 weeks later. So
But I guess
you know.
I'm asking you about that undeveloped property in that corridor, whether it's zoned for what we're looking for or not. Because there are.
Changing the
in
zoning
process
to
of-
accommodate
right.
that, yeah. And some of, I will say that some of the commissioners are they're very sensitive to this. They look at some of the underutilized light industrial parcels that we have, and they are really pushing me as a staff person to say, we need to get this on the agenda. We need to change the zones for these. It's all a process and it takes time. We have to public notice it. So our commission is very thoughtful and intentional about this work.
Got it. Okay.
Where, when individual developers come into a piece of property, they present a traffic study. Right, it's just for that piece of property. Right? Has your department done any traffic study? Like, should we do a traffic study on a yearly basis on what the cumulative effect is of like all this housing and all these, affordable housing developments that are going in, don't have to follow our zoning laws, and do a cumulative effect of what that does to the town? Because there's no doubt, I don't think in anybody's mind, that the traffic over the last 10 years in Fairfield Center has gotten horrific. So what do you guys do about that? Because, I've seen some of the hearings. Yeah, everyone presents a little, they almost hire the same guy. Maybe
Traffic study.
2 guys that did.
There's about 4 of them.
Yeah, there's 4 of them, but one of them gets the majority of the work.
Yeah.
And they present it on their little thing, but there's no comprehensive study. Have you guys done one?
There
Have you-
is,
have you
there
done a
is
comprehensive study on it?
comprehensive work that's done every year where most of our commercial corridor are state roads.
Okay.
And the DOT does traffic counts every single year on
Okay.
those roads. When an individual applicant submits a traffic report or a traffic study, that traffic study not only looks at the traffic generated from that particular project,
Yep.
but it looks at the traffic counts of the roadways that are going to be where people would exit the project and enter into different intersections. And it also has to take into account the other projects that have been approved in the general vicinity that also contribute to traffic counts within those intersections. So it may be projects that have been recently constructed, projects that are on the books to be constructed, and they kind of combine those traffic reports together.
Mhm.
But if you're asking, have we done a town-wide traffic report? We've only really done those in our commercial corridors in conjunction with safety studies such as the Post Road Circle Safety Study and the Black Rock Turnpike Safety Study. We don't generally do it within residential neighborhoods. We do it within certain corridors that have identified high crash numbers, accidents, and unfortunately fatalities.
So, like, I look at the Anchorage project, I know you said it's very successful, but you don't think that changes the traffic at, trying to get from Encore Road?
I thought you were asking because you wanted to know whether there was money in the budget for these type of studies,
Yeah, I
but
mean,
I
what I
feel
wanna
like
know
we're
is
drifting away from the
This is
budget.
what we're gonna do, like in June. We're just here to talk about budgets. We're getting into a discussion of zoning and economic development, which I want to hear about, but not at 10:30 at night, all due respect.
All right, so.
Let's talk about budgets then.
Yes, so I think we covered,
What? Well, we went through Mark.
Yeah, we got one more.
yeah, we have
Planning
the
and
zoning. Are
zoning,
we,
right?
we good with Mark's? Okay, so that means town plan and zoning is on page 45.
That's all right, that's all right.
So revenues were just held flat year over year?
No changes.
We have changes?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, they are detailed in the proposed change
Okay.
schedule.
That was passed.
Send them quick, can you quickly send them out?
Yeah, can you summarize them for us, Ben?
Briefly. Well, she had increased her
But this,
budget
but this,
originally.
but this page has been updated.
Yeah,
prior
what's in
to
the
Board of
budget
Select
book
Person.
was adjusted previously. You can see those figures they're not reflected in the individual department, but in the summary pages in the front of the budget book for her revenue line items, they were captured there, but they didn't flow down to here. So as an example, bear with me 1 second, I need to get. On page 9 of the budget book. Account 42119, PP&Z zoning compliance.
42119.
Yes, that's the
On page
account
9.
number. That's about halfway down the page under licenses and permits. It's on page 9. The proposed 27 budget is 120.
I did not change it below on.
That was an error on my part in updating one set of reports that I was not aware would not flow into the other one.
120.
This was a very, the increase of this revenue was made at 11th hour in terms of, I think, the morning.
120.
So I'm sorry, but if I look at page 45, 42119 was 52,068.
Correct.
Thank you.
120
Flat.
No, no.
No.
If you go to page 9 and look at
Go to page
42119,
So
yes,
now it's 120.
it's 120.
120 flat,
Yeah.
120,
Yeah.
comma, 000.
Mistake there.
Okay, all right. And then are the other subsequent numbers?
42120
Yeah,
went from 24,768 to 30,900.
okay.
42121 subdivision applications went from 1250 to 2,000.
Okay.
42122 map petition went from 500 to 6,000. 42123 special permit and X, I'm not sure what that stands for, went from 5767 to 10,200.
Okay. Miscellaneous?
And miscellaneous is under a different category. I think that one
That was
stayed
flat.
flat.
Okay. So just to clarify, these changes are made to the page. They're already captured in the totals that we're seeing, correct? So these are not changes that,
This was included in the first select person's
that's my
budget.
point. Yeah,
Yes.
so we're,
It's
so
just
You
this
don't have to
page.
make a motion.
You don't have to make a motion, but now,
There was a subsequent change,
okay,
which is detailed on the sheets I passed out earlier this evening. In the proposed budget changes,
yeah,
town planning and zoning, the commission made some
Correct.
additional changes to the fee structure
Correct.
after
They decided to go higher. I submitted a
So
proposed.
if you look on
fee
page
increase.
2 of the proposed budget changes,
okay. So these,
the top 3 are the new additions to TB&Z.
you got 3?
Yeah.
ZBA also?
Yes.
Okay. So, so these are incremental to what you
Yeah.
just took us through, so this would require a vote on our part.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Answer the revenue question, why did these all go up so much?
So as staff, we do a cost comparison with our adjacent communities who we tend to compare with. And I had proposed a fee structure to my plan and zoning, the town plan and zoning commission, and they said, no, go higher. And so the numbers that I had based the increases on were what were submitted originally to our finance department. And then the revision is based on the commission raising them higher.
Well, your increase was a lot more than their increase, so you get the gold.
Thank you.
Okay, and you're comfortable with these numbers? Mr. Welch.
Let me ask you a question. Say on the downtown where we have two-story buildings and people are trying to do affordable housing and 3 stories onto that, on top of that. Can we increase the fees so that on every story above 2, that it'd be like $100,000 fee? On top of, that would be the fee. For, if you want to do a 3rd level, it'd be $100,000 fee. And then the next, then the next level would be another $100,000.
No, I think the state statute specifically says you cannot
I didn't know.
increase
Okay.
fees for affordable housing projects specifically.
Okay, can
You have to,
find
you
that
have to
out?
treat them the same. It is within state statute.
Okay, can you send me the
think-
statute?
Yeah, I think it's actually even within the 830G statute.
Right.
But if it was not, specific to housing, if it's any development, second, third, fourth floor, so it's not, it's agnostic to what the use is. It's just focusing on height. No, I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, no, I'm interested in
So,
that.
so what I will say is I know that you've had the building department come before you. When we look at fees and we compare them to what other towns do, as you know, the building department fees are the largest, they're the largest kind of hit in terms of the development cost process. It's the largest fee that the town takes in. And it does increase if you're building a 4-story building versus a 2-story building, the cost of your construction is radically different. Therefore, the cost of your building permit is much higher if you're doing a 4-story building versus a 2-story building. So I think that we're capturing that. There's a delicate balance between charging developers too much where they can't pencil out a project and making sure that we're covering the costs that we need to cover, but making sure that they're still viable in terms of, you know, a project that they can afford to build and then continue to operate.
And maybe decide Fairfield's not for me, I'm gonna go to another town. Because it's
Potentially.
too expensive. for
Post
fees.
store in the downtown, what's the story height? That's limitation. And there are
So-
zoning laws if you're not, because obviously affordable doesn't have to follow
Right.
zoning regulations. What's the
So
current?
until
height
recently,
restriction?
the story height was five stories and 50 feet. The commission revised that to 4 stories and 52 feet because we want a taller 1st story level and then 3 stories above that. So we're limited to 4 stories in our center, what we call the center design district, which is essentially from Mill Plain Road to east to Beach.
All right. What are the effects of the changes that were recently made on October 1st for the requirement of a coastal area management report? Anything to do with in the AE like district, right? Flood zone? So it'd be for anything post road except maybe down where the harbor comes in. But it's gonna slow development right down in that area.
I don't think it'll slow development to single family structures. It just increases the time that it takes to review them right now.
Yeah, so if I buy a commercial, if I buy a house, I buy a Cape Cod house, now I'm a developer, right? And I wanna put what I consider to be mansion, call them other things, right? And I wanna tear that house down, which has been happening, as you know. Thousands of houses, and there's probably thousands more to be done down there, right? And hundreds,
I think
whatever.
we're in the hundreds now, yeah.
Whatever. If somebody wants to do that. This change that was signed off by the governor, right? It was signed off by the governor, right? We'll probably add 4 months onto the process, right? Before you can start building.
I would say on average, it's probably gonna add at least 2 months.
Well, it's 2 months. You know, from what I understand, it's 4 to 6 weeks. Like they have to submit a report to you, right? So you have to hire, you're gonna have to hire a soil person, right? A soil company or somebody to do your report, like a Huntington or Bill Kenny, you know, so one of these guys, right? To do a report. Then you guys have to take that report and submit it up to Hartford, right? And that turn around 6 to 8 weeks.
They get 30 days
Have you been getting them back in 30 days?
from the state of Connecticut, yes.
Okay, I'm hearing from one developer it's adding 4 months now to his thing. So is.
That
But-
may be for the start to finish process in terms of when we get it.
Yeah.
The state can only take 30 days. That's what they're limited to by statute. And we can proceed with.
And
the
I'm gonna tie it
application
into a
without that.
budget thing, so
Okay. If we can get there, that'd be excellent.
Relax, the door's
Please.
there if you need to leave. So the question I have for you is, will this now delay change any of the numbers you're seeing?
I added, it actually increases some of the fees because of, this now has to be reviewed by the
But
board.
TPZ when it comes back, right?
Correct,
Okay, so it actually increases the fees?
correct.
Okay, but will you be able to get as many houses through as you would have normally seen in a normal year?
It's an entirely different process, so
Yeah.
we've allocated a lot of staff time to be able to move these through as efficiently as we can.
Okay. Staff time meaning you're.
She did ask for more, she did ask for additional
I did
staff.
ask for an additional staff
Budget As we're
person.
talking about the point of adding revenue and not adding the corresponding expense, even though there was a.
All right, so you're adding staff time to this process. with this process.
Yes,
Because how many, you still getting the same, how many of these applications you get a year that you think will be affected by this?
well, we have to take it from a regular compliance that would otherwise be handled by our administratively by
Yes.
our two zoning
Yeah.
enforcement officers. And now we're having to redirect that work to our assistant planning director.
Okay,
So it's a redirection of work.
and what's not getting done now? We're not having staff person?
We're covering it by working a lot of extra hours.
Just by, oh, I thought you said you were redirecting the work.
Well, yes, so our assistant planning director, he is focusing primarily on coastal site plan applications.
Yep.
If we had more time, he'd probably be doing other things, but I'm covering a lot of what otherwise I think the assistant planning director would have covered like last year.
Is this process changing anything for the taxpayers of Fairfield? It's like,
It's a
I mean,
longer process.
it's just
Just a
costing,
longer
it's
process.
costing more money, but these are you getting, most of these are, that you get back from the state? Are approval?
Yes, they are approvals.
They're all approvals, right?
Yes.
So they're having to hire soil people. They're having to waste time with their building, getting it 4 to 6 weeks. And in the end of the day, you know, you might make a little more fee, right? We'll make a little bit more revenue because it has to go to PPZ, the commission, which loads up their work, correct?
Yeah, no, I understand. Listen, I was the president of the Connecticut Planning Association and we lobbied against this going through because it is more work.
Okay.
It is more work.
And do you touch any ground in the beach area, basically? So
Well,
if you
any-
disturb any dirt,
Any property in the flood zone, in the coastal flood zone, in the coastal mapped area now has to essentially go to the commission when it did not before. So we're also trying to lobby to have this change this year. I don't know if we'll get much traction in the legislature. But again, it's not something that I think many of the coastal towns, when I speak to my other planning colleagues along the Connecticut shoreline, are very happy with this law, but it is the law, so we have to follow it.
Were there any specific questions on the expense side?
on the expense side. You mind if I ask?
Yeah.
I don't see anybody else asking. Can you detail what's the reason for your fees and professional services going up by 35.8%? Going up about, you know, almost about.
Legal transcripts for appeals to projects.
Okay. And who's doing those transcripts? Who's that?
So we
preparing?
have to contract out for those to a professional stenographer. So
Yeah.
we use a couple of different stenographers to do that work for the court system report. And it has to be a verbatim transcript, so we contract those out with local folks who do those, local stenographers.
And this is TPZ or DBA turning down an application.
Or approving an
Or
application and
approving
the
an
neighbors
application and
appealing
neighbors
it.
appealing it.
Correct.
And how much have you seen that work gone up over the last?
So we've actually been over budget in this category for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just figured it was time to adjust the budget line item appropriately because we continue to see appeals of projects.
Okay, Is that another reason why your advertising line's going up 100% because of you have to more notifications you have to put in the paper?
Well, that actually ties to some of the planning work that we're doing now. We have
Okay.
to notify, we have to run some of those zoning regulation changes, those notice of decisions within the paper. And so we knew we were going to be doing more work. So we did ask to increase that budget item. It's my hope that we can finish most of the zoning budget work and be able to decrease that line item next year, provided that the newspaper rates don't go up.
Okay. And I know it's not a lot of dollars, but it's just the percentage that drastically went up on your special departmental supplies by 163%. Is that just because you're using more paper and things like that, or is it something specific?
So we took over the engineering department when they reconfigured their space. They
Yes.
gave us a plotter.
Yep.
And so now we have taken over responsibility of that plotter, including the large format paper printing
Yes.
and the
For
maintenance for
maps
that.
and things like that?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so that's the supplies for that,
Yes.
but you also have the revenue for that, the revenue, I
We
guess.
charge $5 so we don't charge a lot of money for that, but we do take in some.
Yeah, well, because when we talked to engineering, they still had a line down there on their
We
thing.
do, we do,
So
we
they
do
get the
take in-
revenue and
yeah.
you get the expense? Is that what's going on?
Well, we also charge they charge downstairs, we charge upstairs. So
Okay.
they may just print more maps than we do.
Okay, so your expense, your revenues in your revenue line for that?
I think it's under the miscellaneous.
Miscellaneous P&Z. I have no more questions in regards to your budget.
Last call. All right, with that, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and we would love to have you come back and talk more about the broader picture. You probably makes the most sense.
So you have them both come at the same time. I think it would be, makes a lot of sense to have them.
Just got volunteered. Thank you very much.
Questions I'm not able to ask tonight because I don't apply to the
Yeah,
budget,
exactly.
so.
I appreciate that
I
too.
want to hold them. See you in June or so.
So with that, before we adjourn, just a little bit of housekeeping. We are gonna, I want to thank this board for all the work over the last several weeks getting through the budget. This concludes our list of departments that we're seeing. I think we have a lot of really good questions. But we don't have any more meetings scheduled. I'd like to cancel our Thursday meeting. And I know our side is planning to use that time to caucus. And our next meeting would be the public meeting on Saturday morning. That's at the high
Ward.
Ward. Are you sure?
Yes.
Ward, okay, so Ward Saturday morning. The new guy brings coffee and donuts, just letting you know. You can arm wrestle with Bob. And then reminder, we'll deliberate on Monday night with an open sense of the body type of dialogue. With the hope of having a really efficient vote on Tuesday. That's the plan. All good?
Yeah.
I think I'm super optimistic about the deliberation. I think we can not do a 5-hour vote.
Yeah. I think,
Feeling it like-
and Mr. Walsh, to your credit, I wanted to let you know, you said something last year that resonated with me. When we talked about it was hard to vote on some of the revenue items early, because you didn't know where things were gonna fall out later. And
Totally, that's why I was talking about that.
absolutely, and it was your suggestion that we kind of revitalize this, so I really think that, we'll talk big picture and then kind of build in on some of the departments, and not everybody will get their way with everything, but I really hope that we can have a consensus on it. With that, a motion to adjourn, Mr. Penley, second by Mr. Rock, all in favor, yay, thank you all.
Thank you.